Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto Found Kushina's Secret Diary. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
As Naruto waited outside the reception area to see his teammate Sasuke Uchiha, the Konoha General Hospital was bustling. The announcement that the third part of the Chunin exams would not start for another month came just a few hours after the second part of the exam. It was to give the exams genin time to polish their abilities and become experts in their techniques in preparation for their impending battle. Additionally, it gave the village of the Hidden Leaf time to get ready for the dignitaries who would be attending the exam. As a kind of entertainment and to assess the prowess of the revered village's shinobi. Naruto was overjoyed to have advanced from the preliminary round into the championship match. He had a promise to keep, which was the main reason he was eager to fight his opponent at the same time. He was present for the preliminary match between Hinata Hyuga, a former classmate, and Neji Hyuga, her clan related cousin. He had witnessed how Neji had made fun of her timid and meek demeanor throughout the match, making her feel incompetent and despondent and encouraging her to give up. He didn't see her bravely battle her cousin until he yelled words of encouragement to her. Though she persisted in trying to stand back up, in the end it was clear that she lacked the necessary skill and she was ultimately defeated. If the proctor hadn't stepped in, Neji would have killed her. Watching her get up in spite of everything that had happened to her had ignited something inside of Naruto. And when that Neji guy would not stop criticizing her and saying that she was destined to lose, it infuriated him. Thus, he pledged to vanquish him and demonstrate to him that destiny does not exist. Even so, he was aware that he needed to strengthen his current skill set. Particularly after they battled the strange guy with the snake in the forest, who somehow damaged him and disrupted his chakra. He thus asked Kakashi Hitaki, his sensei, to help him become stronger so that he could exact revenge on Hinata after being pleasantly surprised to find him. But still. What do you mean you won't train me? In the lobby, Naruto bellowed loudly as the one-eyed, silver-haired man looked at him listlessly. Naruto, please lower your voice. After all, we are in a hospital. When the receptionist glared at the student, the Jonin informed him and the student winced and apologized. As I mentioned earlier, I apologize. It's not that I won't train you. It's just that I can't at this time. I must pay attention to Sasuke. Why? I need help right now because Sasuke is already very strong. In a month, I'll be facing off against Hinata's cousin, so I better get strong. I need to be trained by you, Kakashi. Sensei. I know that, but Sasuke requires more of my attention at the moment. Also, I've already connected you with a tutor to aid with your preparation. He gestured toward a man with a bandana covering his head and dark, circular sunglasses. This guy, seriously? The pervert in the closet? My sexy jutsu could defeat him. He exclaimed, gesturing to the man who winced. Closet pervert? Kakashi gave the man a raised eyebrow. That is really impolite. I'm not a secretive pervert. He screamed at the child. Because of Naruto's positive influence on Konohamaru, Ebisu began to see Naruto as more than just the Nine-Tails container, but he still found it annoying that the boy would constantly call him out as a closet pervert. Why are you putting up with him, Kakashi? Sensei? You must train me, please. Since you're meant to be my sensei, shouldn't you be instructing us all? Kakashi gave a nod. That's true, but at the moment Naruto of the three of you, you are the worst with basic skills. The blonde did not show how much that hurt Naruto, even though he was unaware of it. I have faith in Ebisu to help you refine your fundamentals. You would need a month to catch up with the others, and I would prefer to prepare Sasuke for his opponent in the upcoming round. As Naruto hung his head and listened to his teacher make a weak excuse, he attempted to clarify. So, you're just playing favorites, teach Sasuke all the cool jutsus while leaving me in the dust. Naruto, this isn't the time to show partiality. A few things need my attention, and most of them are related to Sasuke. I'm not going to abandon you, but Sasuke needs my assistance right now. I'm hoping you can see that. Naruto glared up at the man and then snorted, not really understanding what was going on, but his young mind didn't register that fact. Go train Sasuke once more and see if I care, whatever. But I'll handle it on my own if you won't assist me. He bellowed and stormed out before he could catch up. Kakashi watched his student bolt and sighed. Is he going to be alright? Kakashi glanced at Ebisu as he asked. He'll be alright. He will eventually understand. He's still young and sensitive. He cast a sidelong glance as he considered his sensei and pondered what he would do at that moment. Especially in regards to his son. I'll make it up to him later, right now you should probably go find him. The Jonin gave a nod and vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto continued running far away, dodging obstacles in his path. The shopkeepers who mocked him and the villagers who glared at him, along with some of the ninjas who walked by, all showed him contempt. For now, none of that mattered to him. He just wanted to get away from it all and clear his head at the moment. Strangely enough, though, he didn't realize as he ran how far away from the main village he was getting. Beyond anything he had ever ventured before. At last, he stopped to catch his breath. He was holding onto the side of a tree, staring at the ground with his blue eyes, which usually gleamed brightly, slightly dulled. The forest was silent during this moment. His teeth sank in slowly as his fist started to clench. He screamed, "Damn it!" and slammed his hand into the tree. It is consistently the same. Sasuke 1, Sasuke 2. You are so much inferior to Sasuke. Oh Sasuke, oh Sasuke. Gripping his hair, he cried, I'm so tired of hearing the same old crap. Why does he require so much assistance if he is so much better than me? How about me? Why must I be swapped out for someone else? He shouted as he trampled across the clearing, oblivious to the uneven ground beneath his feet. No, it's never different. I get the short end of the stick, but the village adores Sasuke. The earth began to sink a bit deeper. I'm sorry for him, I know he lost his family, but I never even knew mine. I'm not even sure if they gave a damn about me or loved me. A tiny crack appeared in the ground. I mean, what kind of parents give up their own child to seal away the stupid 9? Tails. He just vented at the world, not even noticing that the ground was sinking. Are they still alive at all? Feeling something wet build up in the corner of his eye, he yelled, are they dead, or did they just abandon me once that stupid fox was sealed? All I want is for someone to want to assist me. I want someone who treats me with respect and doesn't use me as a prop. He cried out to the world, and the ground began to crumble. I just want to know if I even matter. Finally, he heard a loud crack and realized that the ground beneath his feet had cracked open, causing him to fall. He cried out, oh she. As he dropped through the opening and hit the earth beneath him. He moaned as bits and pieces of wood and dirt dropped all around him. He slowly sat back up and said, ow. What happened? He turned to face the opening. Did I just fall through the ground? The darkness that surrounded him was broken by the beam of daylight coming through the opening. Did I tumble into a chasm? Who the devil places a pit in the middle of a forest? He brushed wood and dirt from his orange jumpsuit and got to his feet. Looking down, he saw the wooden floorboards beneath his feet and stopped. But this doesn't appear to be your typical pit. Where am I? His eyes adjusted to the darkness and he looked around. What the heck is this place? Cough, cough. Oh man, it's dusty in here. He waved the dust and spider webs away, coughing. As he struggled through the darkness in search of a light switch, the lights suddenly burst. He smirked and fished around for the lighter, which he borrowed from the owner of the smoking store who refused to serve him. Dang it. Wait, I think I have a lighter here. Stupid old man. He lit the lighter with a sly smile. A section of the strange location was illuminated by the small lighter, and he noticed that it resembled a room with a bed, a closet, a pronged kunai hanging off a string, and what appeared to be a large number of sealed-up boxes. This. Although it appears to be a home, who actually lives underground? He paced the area, looking for a way out. Even though it could be a storage space. Oh no, does that mean I haven't discovered one of those Anbu things by accident? Well, I better get out of here before this old man starts talking down to me again. He grinned and noticed what appeared to be a door. There it is. Time to leave now before those Anbu. Just before he unintentionally toppled one of the boxes, he began to walk. Oh, dude. I will be there in spades. He trailed off, noticing a small book on the floor that was bound in leather. It was the name written on the cover, particularly the last name, that made him pause, even though it wasn't the book itself. Uzumaki Kushina. Uzu. Maki? That is my last name, though, right? He picked up the small journal and leaned over. He sensed something different about the leather despite it feeling old and worn. Were there any more Uzumakis? How come the old man didn't tell me? He argued morally with himself while holding the journal in his hand. I should probably put it away because it's not mine. Setting it down, he began to make his way out. As the light fell on the name in the small journal, however, his curiosity stopped him in his tracks. Even so. Surely a quick glance won't harm anything? I mean, maybe it could tell me something about my parents if there was another Uzumaki. He picked up the journal and walked back over. He approached the chair, found a candle, lit it, and took a seat. I turned to the pages of the ancient, tattered journal and started to read. February 15th, Diary of Kushina Uzumaki. Dear Diary. Mama and Papa said that I have to move from Uzushiogakure to Konohagakure next week. They said it has something to do with Mito Obasama and that my chakra was special. They didn't say what it was, only that it was important. I don't want to leave my home, but with the war going on, Mama and Papa believe I will be safer in Konoha. And to be truthful, I would like to find some more daily peace than having to worry about the war reaching Uzushiogakure. Who knows, maybe I can be a kunoichi in the Hidden Leaf. Wouldn't that be something? I have to go. Mama is calling me. I will return later. Naruto read the words as confusion was evident on his face. Uzushiogakure? I never heard of such a place. Was there a whole clan of Uzumakis? What happened to it, and why didn't the old man tell me about it? He continued reading as the date became longer. February 25th, Diary of Kushina Uzumaki. Today was my first day in Konoha and I enrolled at the Ninja Academy. I was so nervous today that I shouted that I would become the first female Hokage. A lot of the other kids made fun of me because of that. Then they made fun of my red hair and my round face, calling me tomato. I didn't like that, but for now, I'll just ignore them. There is this one kid in the class that I don't understand. He stood up and said that he would become Hokage too. He's a little weird and looks kind of like a wimp. I think his name was Minato or something, I didn't catch it. Hopefully, I don't have to worry about him making fun of me. Tomorrow I'm going to meet with Mito Obasama, wonder why? I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Minato, where have I heard that name before? There's a bit of gap in this one, Naruto noted as he continued reading. March 3rd, Diary of Kushina Uzumaki. Hey, sorry for the absence but, I found out what it is I'm here for. I'm still trying to get my head around it, but it turns out that I am, to become the next Jinchuriki of the 9. Tailed Fox. Naruto nearly dropped the journal in shock. W. What? T. The 9. Tails. But I have the 9. Tails. He looked down at his stomach as he felt where the seal would be. B. But that doesn't make any sense. The 9. Tails didn't attack the village until the day I was born. Why was it already here? What else does this say? He asked, wanting to know answers to his ever-going questions. It turns out that Mito Obasama is getting too old to be the 9. Tails Jinchuriki, so they must pass it on to me because we share similar chakra. I've heard stories about the 9. Tails. It's supposed to be this horrifying monster that kills people and destroys anything in its path. And I'm supposed to keep it inside of me? I'll be honest, I'm scared. He noticed spots that looked like dried up tear stains as it was apparent that this Kushina cried while writing it. He instantly felt sympathetic towards her, as he could understand what she went through. But then he continued and found something. But Mito Obasama told me something that made me feel a little better. She said that there is a way to counteract the 9. Tails' negative emotions. She said, we must fill ourselves with love, and be loved in return, so that our burden doesn't become so heavy. I don't understand what she meant, but I know Mama and Papa love me. Is that enough? Naruto looked down at his stomach and imagined where the seal was. Fill ourselves with love, and be loved? He asked himself as he sat alone in the darkroom with the candle, his only source of light. Wonder what that's like. Despite his heart, he continued reading. April 4th, Diary of Kushina Uzumaki. So, today was rather interesting. Some of the kids at the academy started to pick on me again, making fun of my hair and calling me tomato face repeatedly. Normally I could stand it, but today I finally just snapped. If they were going to call me tomato, then I was going to make them regret calling me that. So, I beat them to a pulp. Show them they won't mess with me anymore. Now because of it, they all run away from me, calling me the red hot blooded habanero. Well, it's better than being called tomato face, right? Naruto gulped a little as he imagined a girl his age with flowing red hair and beating the crap out of all the other kids that picked on her. Man, this girl kind of reminds me of Sakura. Chan, that's a little disturbing. He continued to read. While I was beating them up, I noticed that strange kid from class again, the one that said he wanted to become Hokage too. Minato, I think? I asked him if he was going to try and pick on me too, but he didn't say anything and just turned away. I think he's like everyone, treating me like an outsider. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this as he wondered who this Minato she was talking about. There weren't that many blondes in Konoha, other than himself and the Yamanaka clan. So maybe it was someone he knew, but older? He noticed the diary skipped until she was around 12 years old if the date was anything to go by. July 3rd, Journal of Kushina Uzumaki. Hey, it's been a while since I wrote in this. I didn't mean to, but the last few years have been busy. I graduated from the academy and now I'm officially a kunoichi of Konoha, but that's not why I'm writing. Something bad happened to me a few days ago. A few days ago, I was kidnapped by ninjas from Kumogakure, village hidden in the cloud. Naruto gasped a little when he read this and wanted to know more. Even though it was obvious that she made it out okay. They were after my special chakra and the 9 tails that sealed inside me. I won't deny that I was scared. They broke into my home, tied me up, and dragged me out of the village. I tried to resist, but they hurt me if I tried to fight back. There wasn't much I could do. I tried leaving a trail for someone to follow by using my hair. But as we got further and further from the village, I started to lose hope. But that's when I was saved, by the last person I ever expected. I didn't even see it happen, but he took out all the Kumo ninja before they could even react. And when he stepped into the light, I realized it was him, Minato Namikaze. Namikaze. The Minato Namikaze. The 4th Hokage. She knew the 4th Hokage when he was a kid. Holy crap. Naruto exclaimed. It was a little confusing for him. For one, he was finding out about the man that would become the 4th Hokage and seal the 9 tails into him, which should make him dislike the man. But at the same time, he still admired the Hokage, especially the 4th. After all, he wanted to be one someday. He told me that he tracked me down using the strands of hair I'd been leaving behind. I almost didn't believe him, because no one from the search team could find them, but he told me that it was one of the first things he noticed about me and thought it was beautiful. I asked him why he decided to help me now and not when I was being picked on. He told me that he knew I was strong in body and spirit, that he didn't need to interfere in those fights. I asked what made this different, why now especially when I'm an outsider. And you know what he told me? He told me that this war that's raging, it was between 2 villages and he didn't want to lose me. And as for being an outsider, he said I lived in the village, which made me one of them. At that moment, Minato looked like an amazing shinobi in my eyes. I felt like that I would always be safe with him, and that I would want to be by his side. I think I may have a crush on him? Naruto blushed a little when this Kushina woman announced that she had a crush on the 4th Hokage. This is feeling a little personal right now, I should probably stop. He was about to set the book down when he noticed something that was roughly 15 years later or so. July 3rd, Journal of Kushina Uzumaki. Hello, it's been a while since I wrote this thing. But I have some amazing news. Minato and I are getting married. After dating for 2 years, Minato finally proposed to me. It was one of the most romantic gestures I had ever seen. He took me to the top of the Hokage monument, and we sat on top of the Sandaime Hokage's head. We just sat there and watched the whole village, until Minato managed to ask the question. And of course, I immediately said yes. Uzumaki impatience, I couldn't wait. The Yondaime was married? I didn't know that. Uzumaki impatience? He continued reading, as the candle's light flickered. I have unfortunately decided to step down from trying to become Hokage. I'm not saying give up, cause that's not what Uzumakis do. As much as I want it to happen, I am still technically a citizen of Uzushiogakure even though it's long since been destroyed and because I wasn't born in Konoha. But I am a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, and I will always be ready to serve her when the time comes. Naruto smiled a little at this, seeing that even though her dream of being Hokage couldn't come true, she still wanted to protect the village hidden in the leaves. And learning a little something more about the Uzumaki clan. Which made him wonder, what would happen if he couldn't reach his dream of becoming Hokage? Besides, I think Minato might have more of a shot of being Hokage than I ever will. He mastered the sealing techniques of my clan really well and got recognized as a seal master, which is impressive, and my clan was famous for our sealing ability. Thought I may have given him some pointers. On top of that, he has just been assigned his first genin team. I've met them, and they are so cute. I think all have great potential to become amazing shinobi. Their names are Rin Nohara, Obito Uchiha and Kakashi Hitaki. Kakashi? Does she mean Kakashi? Sensei. I didn't know he was trained by the 4th Hokage. Oh man, that means he must know all the 4th Hokage's secret ninjutsu. Which he's probably just going to teach them all to Sasuke, he grumbled before blinking. Wait, Sensei had a team? Why haven't we met them? He asked but continued to read. Rin is so cute. If I ever have a daughter, I'd want her to be just like Rin. She's got a good head on her shoulders, so I know she'll keep the other two in line. And Kakashi, he is so talented, he made Jonin at such a young age. But acts a little too serious, and I think he could afford to be a little laxer. Naruto gave a disbelieving look as he constantly thought about all the times Kakashi turned up late with a lame excuse. And finally, Obito, well, there is a lot he needs to fix up. He acts like a little half-pint most of the time. He trips over most of the time, can't throw a shuriken in his jutsu set. Up needs more work, but honestly, he's my favorite. His bright and cheerful personality and his outgoing attitude deepen the team and those around him. If Minato and I ever had a child, I'd want him to be just like him. A child that values friendships and has a cheerful spirit with a will that can't be broken. I just hope this war ends soon. And I hope one day that my children can learn from them. Naruto didn't know why, but something about Kushina's words resonated with him. It was strange, it was like she was describing the type of person he was. But why, who was this Kushina Uzumaki, and why did reading this journal make him feel so sad, but also happy? He continued to read, wanting to know more. Hey, it's been a while. Something terrible happened, 2 of Minato's students were killed in action. First was Obito, who sacrificed himself to save Kakashi from falling debris at Canopy Bridge. Then, Rin died shortly after. She had been kidnapped by Kirigakure. According to the report, she had been forced to become the Three Tails Jinchuriki, and they planned to activate her once she was back in the village. She knew this and sacrificed herself to prevent it from happening. Kakashi hasn't been the same since. He lost both members of his teammates in so short a period. I can't tell how miserable he must be. And I can tell that Minato is taking it just as hard. It reminded me of when I learned that Uzushiogakure had been destroyed. All those deaths, all those sacrifices, over a meaningless war. I just hope that we learn from this and never forget the men and women who sacrificed themselves for Konoha and always remember their devotion to the will of fire. Naruto held his head down when he finished reading the last sentence. Now he understood why Kakashi-sensei never talked about his old team. Losing both of them, in so short a time, he doubted he would ever want to talk about it. But it also made him more determined to honor the sacrifices of those that gave their lives for the village. Kakashi's lesson still resonating in his head. Those that break the rules are trash. But those that abandon their comrades are worse than trash. I guess I still have a lot to learn about being a ninja, huh? He asked himself as he started reevaluating his own goal. The reason he wanted to become Hokage was so that he could get people to notice him more, so they would stop giving him those glares he felt upon him. But was that good enough? Was that really why he wanted or even should become Hokage? After reading this journal and finding out about the people that sacrificed their lives for the village, he wondered if that made him even worthy of trying to become Hokage. His mind briefly flashed to his teammates and their mission to the Wave Country and even to Hinata's fight. He looked to his hand that made the vow. Remembering that strengthened his resolve, but also readjusted it. Now, he felt that he wasn't going to become Hokage just to earn recognition. He was going to earn it to protect the ones he cared about and the village that he cared about. He would do it in honor of those that gave their lives for the village. He continued reading as he smiled at the next words. December 10th, Journal of Kushina Uzumaki. It finally happened. Minato has been named the Yondaime Hokage, his dream and mine finally coming true. He looked so happy, so proud standing before the village as he vowed to protect it with all he had. He finally achieved his dream. And I fulfilled my new one, to become the wife of the Hokage, you know, so I can keep Minato from doing something stupid. Naruto chuckled a little at this. But that's not even the best news. Recently I was feeling a little under the weather. I thought it was just the flu, but the sickness just kept going every morning. So, I went to the doctors and she confirmed something wonderful. I'm pregnant with Minato's child. Naruto noticed another set of dried tear marks. But from what he read, they weren't tears of sadness but joy. But it raised a question. The fourth Hokage and this Kushina lady were going to have a child? But what happened to it? You'd think something like this would have been public knowledge? What happened to the child? He continued reading while having a strange feeling in his chest. April 3rd, Journal of Kushina Uzumaki. Due to being pregnant, I've decided to take an official leave from active duty. I keep up my ninja skills, so don't worry about old Kushina getting rusty. But we had a visitor today, Minato's old master Jiraiya sensei, or as I like to call him the pervy sage. I swear how Minato wasn't corrupted by his perverted influence I will never know. He wanted to come by and visit his former pupil and get an opinion on a book he was writing. Which wasn't one of those perverted Icha novel trash he usually writes. Those books Kakashi sensei reads? Naruto thought, thinking about the orange book before returning to the journal. He honestly believes that it wasn't any good, but Minato and I liked it. It was a story about a ninja that never gives up, and never backed down. That was the kind of person we want our son to be. Turns out we're having a baby boy. A little baby boy that will carry on our hopes and dreams. And now thanks to Jiraiya, who we've decided to make his godfather, we've got the perfect name for our son. Naruto. His eyes wide with shock and disbelief, he dropped the book and leapt out of the chair, staring at the page with his own name written on it. He shook his head, his hand trembling and his breathing hard. His mind refused to accept the reality, saying, no, 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 no. That can't be right. It can't be true. I can't. He was the fourth Hokage's son. He was the son of the same man who had unintentionally sealed the nine-tailed fox inside of him and left him to live a life of loneliness and isolation with few people to care for him. And his mother was this Kushina Uzumaki, a member of a vanished Uzumaki clan. But why, if I'm their son, then what? He said, lowering his gaze to the one person who could have known the truth. The one person he repeatedly questioned about his parents and who consistently gave him evasive responses. The third Hokage. Marching out of the bunker, he grabbed the book and extinguished the candle. He went to face the man who had lied to him for years, his heart still pounding in his chest. Hokage Manor, the Hokage's office. With a sigh, Sarutobi kept filing off the reports related to the Chunin exam. The real enemy of the Hokage title is paperwork. He would never comprehend how the second and fourth Hokages, his predecessors and successors, came up with strategies to defeat the fearsome foe. Along with dealing with the council, who were now advisors to his former teammate, he also had to keep an eye out for Danzo's little schemes, which he was undoubtedly working on. And there's the unsettling rumor that Orochimaru might have come back to exact revenge on the village. If there had been no information indicating Uchiha's return, it would have been assumed that he had received the curse mark. It was troubling that these reports aligned with the Chunin exam. For this reason, he had just given Hayate Gecko the task of observing Kabuto Yakushi, one of the examinees who might be connected to Orochimaru. He was hoping to find something and stop Orochimaru from doing whatever he was planning. Setting down his pen, he sighed and turned to look at the pictures of the previous Hokages. His eyes fixed on the last picture of his successor, snatched away from them far too soon. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Even though his reign was brief, he had shown himself to be more than capable of leading the position, particularly when he gave his life to defend the village against the Nine-Tails attack. An incident that remained unsolved. Even though everything was set up to keep the Nine-Tails from escaping, there were rumors that someone had disrupted the proceedings and somehow leaked information, allowing the Nine-Tails to escape from their previous host. However, why? Why not take the beast with them if they had it? Why is it being released? To ruin Konoha? Much of it remained a mystery, which he hoped Jiraiya would discover while gathering data. His thoughts strayed to Kushina and the child they had left behind, as well as Minato. Both the villages and Naruto's lives had been spared by their offering, but took away from him the parents who would have cherished him. His mother and father had many enemies, but he knew he should tell him about them. They would have done anything to exact revenge on the Uzumaki clan by going through their only child if they had known that the fourth Hokage, also known as the Yellow Flash, had a son and that a true blood son of the clan was still alive. All he could hope for was that Naruto was born with his father's hair, rather than the distinctive red that characterized all Uzumakis. He was going to keep him safe, he had promised, even if it meant not telling him the truth. His gaze snapped back to reality, old man. As the door burst open and the boy broke through, trying to get past the two Chunin who were there to protect him. We need to talk, old man. Naruto growled back at one of the Chunin. We told you, you can't come in here. Lord Third is very busy right now. And I told you I don't give a damn. I need to talk to the old man right now. Get your hands off me. Hey. Don't grab there. Naruto screamed. Rubbing his aging forehead, Sarutobi sighed. He turned back to his paperwork, thinking, the boy is too much like his mother than his father. What is it, Naruto? Normally I wouldn't mind the distraction, but I'm a little busy planning the second half of the Chunin exams. Whatever it is you have to talk to me about can wait until after the... It's about my mother, Kushina Uzumaki. He turned back to face the boy, who was glaring at him with a look of betrayal and anger and clutching a small leather bound book, and felt his heart drop to his stomach at that name. As the Chunin carrying Naruto exchanged confused looks with him, switching between the youthful Uzumaki and the elderly Hokage, he stopped and asked, where did you? With a sigh, the elderly man motioned for them to depart. The Chunins looked perplexed but complied nonetheless as he told them, that'll be all, I'll take it from here. The boy with blue eyes approached his desk and gave the man a fierce look before the door softly shut behind him. They were silent for a moment, each waiting for the other to say something. Up until Naruto pointed to and held up the journal. Sarutobi asked, knowing now his mother's name, he knew he couldn't lie. Is what's written here true? Is my father the fourth Hokage? Which would probably prompt him to inquire about things and make some connections with the other villagers. The old man finally let out a sigh and interlaced his fingers. Yes. With a growl of rage, Naruto gritted his teeth. Apparently, you were aware of my parents' identities all along and chose not to disclose them to me. I've pleaded with you for years to reveal their identities, but all you ever said was that it wouldn't matter. He yelled, slamming his hands on the desk and staring directly at the man he trusted. Well, guess what, it did matter. Why didn't you tell me the fourth Hokage was my father? Why didn't you tell me I wasn't the only one to have the 9 tails sealed inside of me? Why didn't you tell me about my goddamn parents? And why the hell did my father seal the 9 tails inside of me? What else have you been lying to me about? Sarutobi didn't respond. He just listened to the talk to him. With a sigh, he turned to face the young one. Naruto, it's not as simple as you think. It is simple. It was so goddamn simple. Who were my parents? A simple question you could have answered just as many times that I asked you. Naruto, you have to understand that your parents had many enemies. Your mother's entire homeland was destroyed by a combined effort from 3 other nations. If they had found out that you were their son, they would have done anything to get revenge, even though both of them are dead. Yes, I lied to you about not knowing your parents. But it was for your own good, to keep you safe from those that would harm you. He looked at the child. Not to mention you tend to blurt out things that should be secret. You could have accidentally revealed your lineage and painted a target upon you in the village. But I'm not a little kid anymore. I can handle the truth. I haven't even told my own teammates about the 9 tails sealed inside of me. He replied. Naruto flinched at that. Yet you just barged into my office, screaming your mother's name. I chose to hide your past so that you would be safe. I couldn't risk your safety, or the village's, for the curiosity of a child. He reasoned as Naruto shook with anger until he snapped his head up as tears gathered at the corner of his eyes. While you have managed to keep your Jinchuriki status a secret, that is so you can maintain a normal relationship with your friends. But your lineage, your identity, if it got out old grudges would target the village. Maybe even spark another war. He stopped and fought back his welling tears. But that's not why I asked you about my parents. I don't care that mom and dad had enemies. I didn't care if they were famous or not. He exclaimed. I just wanted to know something, anything, about them. Something to let me know that they actually loved me and didn't just abandon me as the villagers claim. His shoulders sagged as he raised his head. I just wanted to know that someone out there wanted me. For the first time in years, Sarutobi's otherwise upbeat expression took on a look of pure sadness and hopelessness as he looked at the boy. He had believed that he was protecting the boy by not letting him know about his parents. However, he now understood that its only effect had been to puncture the boy's heart. Which, given that his parents had loved him before he was even born, gave him the impression that he was alone in the world. Especially considering that the villagers shunned him and isolated him. At that moment, he realized he ought to have told him in private, or at the very least, let him know they loved him. Minato, Kushina. I made a terrible mistake, said Sarutobi, starting the boy a little as he stood up and approached him. Naruto, your mother and father, they loved you so much, even before you were born. They loved you with all their hearts, so much that I know they would be so proud of you. All these years I thought I was protecting you for them, but instead, I was protecting myself from guilt. I should have been the one to sacrifice myself that day, at least then you would have had parents that loved you. Instead, I denied you what you truly needed in this world. Naruto felt his eyes sting with tears while feeling the embrace of his parents. As he slowly returned the embrace, Naruto said, I hope one day you can forgive me. I'm sorry. For a few minutes, they stayed that way until Naruto pulled away and wiped his tears. The elderly man sadly shook his head and said, Can you tell me about my parents now? I promise I won't tell anyone else. I just want to know what they were like. I can't. Not right now, not while some still would want to hurt you, both inside and outside the village. Naruto sighed. Naruto nodded and looked up a little. But I will tell you everything you want to know later in private. All right, can I at least find out what my mother looked like? I know what my father looks like, but He stammered as the old man nodded and went to his desk, turning on a secret seal. Which yielded a scroll, which he unfolded to reveal a tiny piece of rectangular paper sealed inside. This is it, he said, passing the paper to Naruto, who realized it was a picture. His eyes grew slowly wider as he saw the image of a stunning woman with violet-colored eyes, long, bright red hair, and a kind, warm smile on her face. She definitely looked like she was carrying him, as evidenced by her swollen stomach. His face now matched his mother's name, and he felt little tears welling up in his eyes. I discovered it concealed in this chamber following their demise. Your father genuinely cherished the two of you, Sarutobi remarked, attempting valiantly to conceal the tears streaming down his face as Naruto nodded. May I please keep this? I swear I won't show anyone, he said, getting the old man to nod in response. Naruto nodded and inserted the photo into the journal. Sure, but make sure that no one else sees it. We can't have anyone connecting you two until you're old enough. The man said, being aware that he would protect it. Grandfather, Lord Hokage, he said, offering the elderly man the only deference he had ever known. The third Hokage found it a little shocking. The elderly man nodded and he said, I promise to take care of this. But promise me you'll tell me everything later, okay? He pointed to the journal and said, Deal, now where did you find this? Oh, I sort of fell into this bunker-looking thing out in the woods. I figured it was one of those ambush sites you told me to stay away from. He clarified as Sarutobi nodded. Well, you're partially right. But that bunker was one of your father's. He had some built as a fallout shelter for you and your mother in case something ever happened to Konoha and he needed to get you two to safety. I had all their stuff moved there after their deaths. I'll probably have to get someone to fix it later. Naruto gave a nod. Naruto sneered at this and said, Now, shouldn't you be training? I assume Kakashi has some training plans set up for you? The old man raised an eyebrow. Not really, he's spending all his time training Sasuke again and set me up with that closet pervert, Ebisu. Ebisu? With all due respect, Ebisu lacks the necessary tools to properly train someone like Naruto. For someone of his caliber, his chakra reserves are simply too great to train. Regarding concentrating more on Sasuke, I understand that it's to monitor the curse mark and assist with his Sharingan, but I never would have imagined that Kakashi would be partial. I'll have to speak with him later. I see, tell you what, I know someone that may be a better fit for you. He was your father's sensei, his name is Jiraiya. At the end, he asked in a slightly aggressive tone, Jiraiya? I just read about him, he was supposed to be my godfather, right? So where the hell has he been? Something that made Sarutobi sigh. Yes, well, there is a reason for that, and I know you two will have some serious catching up to do. Naruto gave a nod. Naruto nodded, took the book, and headed out the door. But I must warn you, your true heritage must remain a secret. You cannot tell anyone, not even your team. Until I know you can protect yourself. He hesitated as he raised his gaze to the fourth Hokage's picture, feeling uneasy to learn that the man he looked up to and who shaped his life was actually his own father. But he couldn't bring himself to despise him for some reason. The man at the door asked, old man? Is it okay if I occasionally use that bunker? The elderly man asked with a raised eyebrow. He asked, what for? As Naruto gave him an uneasy arm rub. The man nodded and he said, well, I want to look after their stuff, maybe even see if I can learn more about them? I understand, I would let you settle in their old home, but the property was sold off years ago. I'll have the hole repaired by the end of the day, I'll even give you a spare key to the bunker. You may learn more about them, I'm sure it's what they would want. Until then, head out to the hot spring area. If my hunch is right, that is where Jiraiya will be. Naruto gave a nod and walked away. And Naruto? He exclaimed, then pivoted to face him. Naruto thought for a moment before saying, don't be too hard on him. There are reasons we kept things from you. Some you may understand, some you may not. But no, we did it for your safety. The elderly man sighed and he said, I think my safety is the last thing I need to worry about. I'm trying to be a ninja, right? All he said was, I see, as Naruto walked out of the office and let the elderly man settle into his chair and sigh. He just said, Minato. Kushina. Please forgive me. I will set this right, before going back to work. Hot Springs Konoha. One of the hidden village's primary tourist destinations was the Konoha Hot Springs. Constructed not too long after Konoha, the hot springs were well known for their restorative properties and tranquil setting. Naruto was searching for the man who was both his father's sensei and his presumed godfather when he arrived at this location. He moaned in frustration, man, how the heck am I supposed to find him? She stroked his chin and said, I don't even know what he looks like. Maybe I should have asked the old man for a description in retrospect. With a small laugh, he peered down at the journal tucked inside his jumpsuit. Uzumaki impatience, huh mum? He was interrupted. Okay, let's think, what did mum say Jiraiya was like? Well, she said he was. He turned to spy a man gazing over the hot springs with a perverted expression on his face, but he heard a perverted giggling coming from his right. The man was tall, with a wart on his nose, red markings on his face, and long, spiky white hair pulled back into a ponytail. He had a large scroll on his back and was dressed in a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, a black belt, arm guards, mesh armor, traditional Japanese wooden sandals, and a red haori with 2 yellow circles on each side. He also had a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil on it. He laughed, oh yeah. This is great material. Hee. While Naruto just stared. Ah, that's correct. Mum called him pervy sage. I understand why. He then gave a menacing scowl and balled his fist. This man is supposed to be my godfather, according to Mum's journal. Is this what he was doing all along? Watching girls closely. As he ground his teeth, he thought bitterly. Then he smiled, conjuring up some nasty notion. He cried aloud for everyone to hear, startling the man and warning all the women, hey. What are you doing peeking on the woman's bath? In a panic, Jiraiya jerked his head around and hissed, hey. Keep it down you brat. But it was too late because the women noticed. They cried out, what? A pervert. And, kya. And, get that pervert. As various bathroom utensils flew over the wall. Being able to secure the Jiraiya. They came running at him, belting him with whatever they had, and he tried to explain, damn it, brat. Ladies, please it's all a misunderstanding. Following that, he was left with bruises. A few of the girls thanked Naruto, "Thank you, so much young man," and he laughed. They thanked him and left him saying, "It's no big deal. I was just passing by when I saw him, I'll get rid of him for ya." He thought to himself, he's out cold. Might want to take him far from here, and so he called for several clones and pulled him away from the bathhouse. Prior to dousing the man's face with frigid water. When Jiraiya woke up, he coughed loudly, and Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. He questioned, "Oi, you dead?" As Jiraiya moaned and stood back up. He rubbed his jaw and got back up, muttering, "Nope. A man of my talent won't go down like this. Plus, their beating is nothing compared to Tsunade's." Then, as he turned to hide his recognition, he saw Naruto. "So, that's Minato's kid. He almost looks like him," he mused, feeling a little guilty and nostalgic at the same time. Well, it has been a while, he thought to himself. Naruto arched an eyebrow and said, "So, brat, mind telling me why you just ruined my perfectly good research?" "Research?" he inquired, acting as though he didn't know who he was. "Looked to me like you were just peeking on women, ya pervert." He held up a copy of his book and exclaimed, "Ha! Far from it, ya brat. For you see I am a writer, not a pervert. And peeping gives me the inspiration I need to write my famous novel." Naruto acted surprised and tapped his fist to his palm, saying, "Oh, my sensei reads that." He remarked, "I think it's just trash anyway. If you're the guy who writes it, you must not be that famous," as Jiraiya recoiled in pain. "Garbage!" he exclaimed. "He really is Kushina's brat, oh boy. Inconsiderate of genuine art." As he shook himself out of his daze, he thought. He then began to do a kabuki dance as he struck a pose. "Excuse me, but this is not trash. This is my work of art. My crowning achievement. And I am far from a nobody, you disrespectful little brat. For you see, on top of being a super pervert, I am not just an inspiring writer," he exclaimed. Naruto stared at him before beaming, "Because I am the holy sage of MT. Myoboku. Gamma. The great toad sage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Master Jiraiya," he exclaimed. He asked with enthusiasm, "Oh. Yeah, I think I have heard of you. You're supposed to be the man who trained the fourth Hokage, right?" The man nodded and smiled. "Which also means you're supposed to be my godfather, right? Seeing as both mum and dad got my name from your book, right?" he asked as Jiraiya replied. He looked at the boy in shock before his face grew gloomy and trembling. He was about to say, "What did you just, gaw?" when Naruto grabbed the chance to punch him in the stomach, making the sage bow his head in agony. With the man doubling over, he yelled, "That's what you get for abandoning me." As Jiraiya managed to stand back up, he yelled angrily, "Is this what you've been doing for the past 12 years of my life? Peeking on bathhouses and writing trashy novels? If my parents were here, I'm sure they would give you such a thrashing." With a nod from Naruto, he said, "Wait a minute. You know? B. But I thought," the old man agreed. Showing the old leather bound book, he exclaimed, "I found out by myself. Thanks to this journal I found about my mother. I also found out that the man who trained my dad was supposed to take care of me in case anything happened to them. Well, guess what? Something happened to them and I haven't seen hide or hair of you for 12 stinking years." He screamed as he pursued the individual. Jiraiya yelled, "Whoa. Wait a minute." As Naruto continued tossing fists at him, but he ducked them. He called forth multiple clones and they tried to dogpile the man, saying, "My parents trusted you. Believed in you. And this is how you repay them. By leaving their only child alone to defend for himself." He screamed, "Just hear me out." As he quickly dispelled the clones by swerving around and over them. He became very emotional and yelled, "Shut up. I don't want to hear anything from an oathbreaker like you." The sage was able to gain better balance and repelled his punches and kicks as he yelled, "Where were you when I was growing up?" Jiraiya chose to let him vent and said, "Where were you when I was alone? Scared and afraid." The corners of his eyes started to get wet, and he screamed, "Where were you when I needed someone to tell me I mattered? To tell me I did my best?" His fist grew weaker and slower as they didn't even injure the man. "Where were you when I needed someone to take care of me? Where were you when I scraped my knee? Came down with the flu or picked on by other kids? He exclaimed. His hands were now just pounding on his chest as he began to slowly collapse. Where were you when I needed you the most? Where were you? He exclaimed. Jiraiya peered down at the child in front of him, sorrow in his eyes. Where were you to tell me about my parents? By now Jiraiya was reduced to a weeping child staring at the small child that was under his care. That day, the guilt he had carried inside of him was greater than the total weight of all the years he had carried it. He gently put his arms around the boy's shoulders and gave him a brief but heartfelt hug. Again serving as a reminder of his lost student, he softly said, I'm sorry. I truly am sorry, Naruto. The boy listened and held his tongue, but he said, I know that no words I say right now can excuse me for what I've done. And I have no doubt failed the promise I made to your parents. Holding the boy at arm's length and kneeling down, he said, but like your parents, I have a duty to the village. To keep an eye out for those that would wish harm upon the home I love. Just as your parents did when the 9 tails broke free. Naruto looked at the man with tears in his eyes before wiping them away with his sleeve. But I promise you, I will make up for my error and train you to the highest degree. I know it will take a long time before you can ever forgive me, he said. All right, he uttered quietly. It will take a while before I forgive you, but I should at least give you the benefit of the doubt. That's what my parents would do, right? He asked with a nod. He questioned, but, can you promise me one thing? As Jiraiya blinked. The man nodded and he asked, can you tell me what my dad was like when he was my age? I will, he uttered as they split ways. He nodded as Naruto asked, now, I suppose I should help you with your training, right? Suddenly recalling his promise to Hinata. Right. I need your help. I made it to the semi-finals of the Chunin exam, and I need to beat this guy named Neji. It's kind of a long story, but basically, he said some bullshit, and I need to teach him a lesson. He said with a nod. I see, well, if I recall we have a month to get you trained up for the exam. That's not a lot of time, but I can work with it. Report back here tomorrow and we'll start your training first thing in the morning. He said while glaring at Naruto. Jiraiya laughed and he asked, you're not going to turn up late like Kakashi. Sensei, are you? He looked at the boy who nodded and said, no, of course not. Besides, turning up late would not be a good start, huh? He turned around, a perverted smile spreading across his face, and said, now. He said, beaming, I got some pretty ladies to check out. And turned to leave. He asked himself, why does every person I train with always turn out to be a pervert? And then sighed, raising his gaze to the sun that was slowly setting. As he left, he thought to himself, it's getting late anyway, need some good sleep if I want to beat that Neji asshole. Several hours later. After returning to his apartment at last, Naruto turned on the lights in the hallway and just stared at the empty space. As he looked around the house he had called home for the previous few years, the sense of emptiness it exuded persisted. However, he had an instant mental image of entering a caring home. His father was sitting at the table reading a newspaper when his mother welcomed him and gave him a loving pat on the head. Sitting around the table, telling stories about their days and indulging in his mother's homemade cooking, he dreamed of a different life. Tears formed in the corners of his eyes, and he slumped to the ground as the pain in his chest intensified. He let out the pain he had been holding inside for so long, soft sobs coming out of his lips as the walls he had built up over the years finally came tumbling down. Life was unfair and cruel. That was something he had learned early on. However, it appeared that today was both a gift and a curse. He had discovered his loving parents, but they had both been taken away. But now, as he imagined both of his parents cradling him while he sobbed uncontrollably, he felt warm. Life wasn't fair. However, it wasn't as though he would ever give up. He had promised himself that he would become Hokage and that he would never give up. That was his way, the ninja. However, he now also desired to fulfill his parents' dream of becoming a shinobi. To honor the yellow flash and the red, hot-blooded habanero of the hidden leaf, and to be the ninja who would inherit their wills and become the orange Hokage. It was how the ninja did it. Sarutobi sighed and turned to examine his mountains of paperwork. Despite his years of experience and commitment to his work, he could not help but detest this horrible paperwork. For the umpteenth time, he asked himself, oh, why couldn't I have retired? chosen someone else to become Hokage and live a more quiet life? That wouldn't be his style, though. Being the village guardian meant watching over everyone and standing your ground against anyone who dared to hurt the leaf. Nobody else would be prepared to take on his fallen student, especially in light of the recent reports of Orochimaru being on the loose, particularly during the Chunin exam. Still, I should have just retired and been done with this infernal paperwork once and for all. I swear it will be the death of me. He was joking with himself. Don't say that, Sensei, Jiraiya said as he sat on the edge of the windowsill, and he felt the presence of one of his former students. He sighed and said, "You've still got plenty more years left in you." Sarutobi sighed. Jiraiya nodded and he said, "Jiraiya, it's good to see you again. How have you been?" "As usual, moving forward, completing this and that. Composing my next bestseller." "By the way, Sensei," he said, extracting a copy of his most recent book from inside his coat. The man took the book despite blushing, and Jiraiya said, "Here's the next issue," with a slight perverted smile. He said, "Thank you for the gift," and tucked the book inside his robes while coughing into his hand. Jiraiya nodded as Sarutobi remarked, "I assume you're aware. Orochimaru is on the move." "Yeah, I heard rumors that Snake Bastard was plotting something. The fact he was spotted here in the village again is not a good sign," he said with a nod. He guessed as Jiraiya shook his head, "Yes, we should be careful. I'm sure he plans to attack the village of his old birth, all because I denied him the title of Hokage." Jiraiya attempted to console his sensei, who shook his head, saying, "It was always more than that, Sensei, and you know it. Those experiments, his disregard for his fellow ninja or life for that matter. He would have made a terrible Hokage. You made the right choice." More than Jiraiya, he asked himself, and yet I didn't stop him. If I had, maybe none of this would be happening. He could still recall how the old man had spared his once favorite student when Orochimaru had left the village. He asked as Jiraiya nodded, "In any case, we'll deal with Orochimaru when he moves. But right now, I assume you're here about Naruto?" Sarutobi nodded as he said, "Yeah, to tell you the truth, I was surprised the kid learned the truth about his parents. So was I, but it seemed that Kushina had inadvertently left a gift behind for her son. I should have known her journal had contained sensitive information that could have leaked out into the open, but after their deaths and with the village as it was after the 9 Tails attack I didn't consider it," he said with a sigh. "Still, Naruto has shown more maturity than I gave him credit for. He took the news better than I expected and seems more driven now to become Hokage. Makes me think I should have told him about his parents sooner?" He asked with a shrug. "Perhaps I ought to have spent more time with him. But it's too late to undo that now," Jiraiya said, turning to face the picture of his former student. "I messed up, and didn't take my role as godfather more seriously. It's just, every time I looked at him, all I could see was Minato and Kushina, and it hurt," he admitted while shaking his head. He pondered, "Maybe that is just some lame excuse, and I hope they can forgive me someday," and Sarutobi had the same thought. "In any case, I wanted to talk about Naruto. Seeing as he's going up against that Neji kid in the semi-finals, I want to help him get better. Make up for not being there for him when he needed me," he said with a nod. Giving the man Naruto's Chunin exam results, he said, "Good, I think Naruto will need your guidance now more than ever. The young man is not as cool-headed as his father was, but he is just as creative. Not to mention the years he's spent as a prankster have given him a unique cunning neither of his parents had. He tends to charge in, not coming up with a strategy at first but proving to be able to come up with one on the fly. Impressive, but honestly, not Chunin material at the moment," Sarutobi stated as Jiraiya nodded as he examined the paperwork. Sarutobi sighed and he said, "I got that. I've got my work cut out for me, don't I?" Despite my best efforts, few would train the boy. Iruka was the only one that taught him anything, but that didn't happen till around Naruto's 3rd year. And with my time being consumed with Hokage duties, there was not much I could do. Not to mention, with Orochimaru supposedly targeting Sasuke, I need Kakashi to train and focus on Sasuke for the time being, he complained to Jiraiya. His sensei nodded and he said, "Boy, we messed up, didn't we?" As they both gazed at the image of the 4th Hokage, he remarked, "We have. But maybe it's time we righted some of our wrongs, and made sure Naruto fulfills his dream of becoming Hokage like his father." Early in the morning, Naruto's flat. Naruto awoke to a familiar ceiling, his eyes still raw from the tears he had shed all night, and was momentarily confused until he slowly connected the dots with what had happened the day before. Knowing his parents was still a foreign concept to him, so he thought to himself, oh yeah, that's right. I found out who my parents were. Wow. That's going to take some getting used to. It was also uplifting to know who his parents were and that they loved him so much. It even made him smile as he gripped his chest. It's time to go see Pervy Sage, then. I have 1 month to strengthen myself and prove to Neji that he is mistaken about fate and junk. As he rose from the bed and enthusiastically stretched, putting on his orange clothes from the nearest, he said to himself. Even though it was all the stores would sell him, he never really liked it at first because it was all he could afford. In addition, he had a sneaking suspicion that the stores were hoping he would get killed one day for wearing an orange outfit, so he had decided to just wear them and prove them all wrong. But it became more personal to him after he learned that his mother was the red hot-blooded habanero and his father was the yellow flash. Though, he thought to himself, I think I might need to update my wardrobe a little. I can't go around with holes in the back of my pants, as he noticed some of the new holes he had from the preliminary exam. I could possibly use some old clothes that Dad has. He said, grabbing his keys, fastening his pouches to his body, and grabbing his headband to tie it to his forehead. I'll stop by the bunker later and see. His parents had always seemed like a blur or random people to him, but now that he had faces to names, he could finally imagine what a life with them might have been like, and it hurt, but in a good way. They faded before he took out the photo from the journal in his pocket and stared at their faces. He looked at himself in the mirror, momentarily imagining his parents to be behind him, hand on each shoulder as they smiled proudly at him. He promised himself that he would make his parents proud, so he hid the photo in the journal and left the apartment, racing to the waterfall to start his training for the Chunin exam finals. It didn't take him long to arrive at the waterfall, where he saw the white-haired man writing in a small notebook while sitting under a tree. How come you're here? Jiraiya laughed and looked up at the boy as Naruto spoke. Obviously, I promised to make up for a lot of lost time, so arriving late would have been a bad idea, right? As Naruto nodded, he asked. I apologize. I'm just accustomed to Kakashi Sensei arriving several hours late. What then are you going to instruct me in? One of my father's incredible jutsu? One of his extremely covert methods, oh. Or perhaps his blood. Only ninjutsu scrolls, which are his secret knowledge. He began to become enthused about the potential. Water walking. Huh? Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said, water walking, today you're going to practice walking on water. To be quite honest, I was hoping for something a little more amazing? The man laughed and he confessed. You and your mother are remarkably similar. She used to get extremely excited about everything. You should have seen her when she found out she was pregnant, the boy said, trailing off as he noticed Naruto holding onto his chest and feeling warmer than his mother. It was pleasant. Remember that you are still a genin child. You possess more chakra than most people your age and are the 9 tails Jinchuriki, but you are still at the lowest tier of the ninja hierarchy. It took your father years of training and mastery over the fundamentals before he became the ninja that he was, and he did not become Hokage overnight. Heck, he even combined some fundamentals to craft his strongest jutsu. He crossed his arms and sighed slightly as he said to Naruto, everything begins with little steps. He sighed and said, I guess. Okay, what do I have to do? Are you familiar with the wall walking method? Jiraiya nodded and asked, it's kind of like that, except you're using your chakra to repel yourself above the water's surface rather than to stick to a surface. He went out and walked on the water, explaining, you have to release a constant steady stream of chakra and keep yourself above the water's surface. What I am doing right now is regulating the necessary chakra to keep me balanced. Much like with the tree exercise, too much and the water is blasted off. He said, too little and you sink, as he made his way back to the coast. But first, I must assess your present level of proficiency and determine what I'm dealing with. Tell me, what methods have you tried so far? He inquired. Well, I know the shadow clone technique, some shuriken and kunai skills, the transformation technique and the tree climbing technique. He identified himself as Jiraiya. And? Glancing at him in anticipation of more. And that's it? Jiraiya blinked and stared for a moment before Naruto spoke. Is that all? You're not aware of any other methods? A little confused, he asked. I know how to use the regular clone technique, but I'm not very good at it. For some reason, all of my clones end up looking dead and lifeless. He admitted to his embarrassment before he noticed Jiraiya smack his face with his palm. Pervy Sage? Are you serious? Is that all you know? When I was a student, it was expected that a genin must be proficient in both offensive and defensive forms of jutsu in order to pass. What on earth is happening at that school? Oh no. Bringing his hand down his face, he moaned, although I take it that not many people at the academy were willing to teach you. Naruto nodded and sighed as he asked. He rubbed the back of his head and said, yeah. The only one that was willing to teach me was Iruka Sensei, but he was busy most of the time. And I kind of didn't help with my pranks and all. Alright, we have a lot of catching up to do. More than my ability to finish before the finals is likely. Jiraiya motioned for the boy to walk on the water, saying, but for now, let's see if you can master the water walking technique. Naruto nodded and headed toward the water, but before he could get the only item he owned from his parents wet, he stopped and put his jacket and journal on a rock, remembering that his mother had kept a journal. Then he made the familiar hand sign with his hands and directed his chakra toward the soles of his feet, making them repel water as he took a few slow steps and eventually submerged himself, breaking the surface, coughing out some water and returning to shore. Oh no. Okay, give it another go. He yelled as he focused chakra again and stepped out onto the water, only to fall in again. Damn it. So he gave it another go. And again, and once more. Jiraiya laughed as Naruto came out of the water, saying, you inherited your mother's stubbornness, I can say that much. However, he could tell right away that there was a problem with the boy's chakra. Oh no. He threw off his shirt and focused again. This time he managed to keep himself afloat, with the water going up to his ankles, as he grinned. Oh yeah. That makes more sense. I told myself before tumbling into the water. Oh no. The boy screamed, Oi, Naruto, as he came out of the water. Come here for a minute, he said, glaring at Naruto as he turned to face him again. I want you to focus your chakra again, he said, confusing the boy as he focused on molding his chakra. As he did so, the 8-trigram seal materialized over the boy's stomach. There it is, Minato's seal. It's just as complex as I thought. Minato must have mastered the Uzushiogakure sealing methods to create this little beauty. Using 2 4-symbol seals to make the Hokage seal, very smart. It's designed in a way to protect the kid from the 9 tails chakra influence, while slowly letting a little bit mix into his chakra reserves. You were a clever man, Minato. His eyes narrowed when a new seal appeared over the top. But someone recently overlapped it with a 5-pronged seal. An odd and even number seal explains why it's disrupting the flow of chakra in Naruto's body. No wonder he's having trouble mastering the water technique with this one. But this is rough and unrefined, not Minato's style. No, from the handiwork, this has Orochimaru written all over it. Alright, old man, are you done? As Jiraiya shook his head, Naruto inquired. He told him, almost, just raise your hands above your head, as Naruto did so. Like this, I guess? Jiraiya nodded and silently called forth the 5-pronged seal release behind his back as he asked. He mentally cried out, 5-pronged seal, release, and plunged his fingers deep into Naruto's stomach, causing the boy to gasp and take off running away from him, the 8-trigram seal remaining in place. Oh my god, pervy sage. How on earth did you do that? As the man raised his hands in surrender, he yelled. Naruto appeared perplexed as he said, relax, I was hitting a series of pressure points in your stomach to help you relax. Now why don't you try it again? Well, alright? It's strange, my chakra feels normal again, he thought to himself as he cautiously stepped out onto the water's surface as Naruto approached the water and focused his chakra on the soles of his feet. He joyfully exclaimed, hey! I did it! As he began to twirl on the water's surface. With a faint smile, Jiraiya observed, his thoughts drifting to his earlier years when he had mentored the boy's father. Naruto had his heart, even though he wasn't exactly like his father and was more like his mother. He bent down to the boy and said, okay, that's enough showboating. Now, before I continue training you, we need to address something. He questioned, you are aware that you have 2 types of chakra, right? For a brief moment, confusing Naruto before he realized. He put his hands on his stomach and said, yeah. Mine in the 9 tails My mother. She was like me. She had the 9 tails before me, right? He questioned, getting a nod in response. That's right, it's one of Konoha's greatest and most closely guarded secrets since the time of the first Hokage. If you've read your mother's journal, then you know you are also not the first Jinchuriki of the Hidden Leaf, but also you are not the only Jinchuriki, he said while Naruto was blinking. I'm not? He exclaimed, startled to learn this, as the man gave a nod. Correct, I really shouldn't be telling you this, but since you found out about your mother and her former status, I guess it's only right to tell you. What you possess is one of the 9 tailed beasts that each of the 5 villages possesses. Konoha possesses the strongest of the beasts, the 9 tailed fox. Despite what everyone thinks, the 9 tails was here long before it managed to get loose years ago. During the Great Shinobi Wars, the tailed beasts Jinchuriki were often used as weapons against the enemy. But since it's more peaceful for the moment, it was decided that public knowledge of their existence was kept under wraps. At least here in Konoha, I'm still surprised you found out about it, Jiraiya acknowledged. Curious, Naruto said, Mum's journal told me about it. She was the 9 tails Jinchuriki before me. Did she ever master its chakra? Jiraiya acknowledged that she had only recently learned of Kushina's status after her death, to which Naruto blinked. Not that I am aware of, your mother was more like a warden with the 9 tails, making sure he never got out. And before her, the first 9 tails Jinchuriki, Mito Uzumaki, was accordingly a powerful fighter and seal master, but not much is known if she ever used his chakra. Intrigued by the fact that the 9 tails Jinchuriki was an Uzumaki before him and his mother, Naruto said, wait, Mito Uzumaki? I think I remember reading about her in the journal. Was she a relative of mine? Sort of, she was the first Hokage's wife and heiress to the Uzumaki clan before they were wiped out in the Third Shinobi War. So there's not much I can tell you. But in any case, as a Jinchuriki, you have access to 2 types of chakra, yours and the 9 tails. Those that are hosts to tailed beasts possess powerful chakra. But with more power comes a greater need for control. Have you ever felt the 9 tails chakra seeping into you? He inquired as Naruto pondered. I think so. I sort of remember the mission back at the Wave Country and then again in the forest. I blacked out and when I came to, the fighting was over. Naruto acknowledged with a nod. He questioned, and how would you describe this chakra, what did it feel like? As Naruto gave it some thought, he attempted to explain, well, my normal chakra feels blue. But this one felt red. And it made me angry, very angry, but his early recollections of utilizing the 9 tails chakra were hazy at best. Makes sense, your father designed the seal so that it would only leak out a portion of the 9 tails chakra, in what I assume was a way for your reserves to adapt to his chakra. And from what I know, tailed beast chakra is potent. Very potent. I'd want you to try and draw out this chakra, but given your current skills and my lack of guidance with your education, he added with regret. We need to get you to remaster the basics. Jiraiya folded his arms over his chest, and Naruto screamed, the basics. I don't have time for that. I need to get stronger now. There's this guy the first need to face in the semi-finals, and I can't do that if I have to go over the basics again. As Naruto shrank until he could recall the name, he asked, and who exactly are you fighting against? He said, a guy named, Neji Hyuga, and Jiraiya gave him a nod. He summarized, I've heard of him, he's part of the Hyuga clan's branch family. They say he's a genius when it comes to taijutsu, he'd be quite a challenge for you, as Naruto balled his fist behind him. He added, but I have to beat him. He hurt his cousin, Hinata, and I promised I'd make him pay for what he did, to Jiraiya's raised eyebrows. He grinned slightly and said, interesting, you are doing all this for the clan heiress? He questioned, do you fancy her or something? As Naruto furrowed his brow. Jiraiya slapped his forehead and he thought to himself, what? No, I mean. She's kind of weird, always quiet, and she can't seem to look me in the eye without her face turning red. I think she might have an illness or something. Sage above, grant me courage. However, he said with a small smile, I respect that she didn't give up, despite Neji's attempts to put her down. He pointed to his hand, which held the blood promise. The fact that Neji belittled her for it makes me mad, and I want to prove to him how wrong he is. So I need to get stronger so I can beat him. You get what I mean? He asked with a nod. Naruto nodded and he said, I get you. Okay kid, we'll get you stronger. To do this, I'm going to be serious with your training. I'm going to train you to both learn and master the basics, and get you to gain some control over the 9 tails chakra, he said while Naruto was blinking. Jiraiya nodded and he asked, gain control, is that possible? It's happened before. Some containers have been able to harness and utilize their tailed beast's chakra over the years. You will be no different, so to do that, I'm also going to teach you a special technique that should help, Jiraiya said with a grin. Naruto exclaimed, a special technique. Awesome. What is it? As the man bit his thumb, smirked, and proceeded to make various hand gestures. Jiraiya exclaimed, summoning jutsu. As a seal materialized on the ground and a massive cloud of smoke burst forth, followed by Jiraiya rising to the top of a massive toad. Whoa! Exclaimed Naruto, startled. Summoning jutsu is a technique that can only be used if you have a contract with a certain life form. For example, your father and I both signed the toad summoning contract, which allowed us to summon toads into battle. Jiraiya clarified as Naruto stared in a... What does it do? It's so cool! Exclaimed an excited Naruto. As the toad extended its tongue toward the young Uzumaki, he spoke, well that's the thing. Summons can range from a variety of skills, from tracking to combat. My former teammates used theirs for reconnaissance and healing. To summon these guys, you need to sign your name in blood on this scroll. That way you enter a contract with these guys to summon one. I want you to sign this so that I have a way to reach you in case of an emergency. As Jiraiya held up 2 fingers, Naruto asked in confusion, reach me. How? The summoning contract works both ways. We can summon them, but they can also summon us in return. However, they exist in a place called Mount Myoboku, so you'd be brought there instead. But that part is more advanced for your level of training. This way, however, I can get the toads to summon you there in case of an emergency, got it? He asked as Naruto raised his face tad. Yeah, kind of, he said, to Jiraiya's sigh and headshake. He told him to just sign the contract so we can start the summoning process, to which Naruto nodded and unfolded the scroll. His gaze strayed across a few of the older names inscribed in withered blood, pausing at the final name. Minato Namikaze. His dad. As his hand brushed against the bloodstained name, Naruto stared at it, picturing his father's hand being placed upon it. Jiraiya saw this and smiled a little, broodingly. I know that if your father was here today, he'd be proud. Your father was my best student. He was almost like the son I never had, Jiraiya remarked, and Naruto nodded, holding back a tear that was about to fall from his eyes. Naruto said, knowing who they are now hurts more than not knowing used to. At least now I know that they love me. Jiraiya put a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder as he grinned sorrowfully. Kid, remember that they loved you even before you were born, he said, to which Naruto nodded, smeared his fingertips, and bit his thumb. Then he put his fingertips on the paper and signed his name in blood, right next to his father's. Completing the deal and joining the Toad Summoning Alliance. Okay, so for now let's work on summoning. We're going to do this to see what you can summon with normal chakra, then we focus on learning the basics. By the end of the month, I plan to have at least know 2 offensive jutsu, 1 defensive, and hopefully learned how to summon a proper toad into battle. I'm also going to have you work on some taijutsu practice. At this point, it's too late to get you to learn a whole taijutsu art form before the match, but it will look better to the judges if you don't just charge your enemy. Your strategy skills will be another thing to work on. From what the old man told me, you tend to just charge in. Although he has noted that you tend to come up with unique methods on the fly, so we'll work on that. On top of all of that, we're going to work on you tapping into the 9 tails chakra. You got all that? The top of his head steaming means. He asked with a hint of certainty. Seems like a lot though. Well, your father did more than that before he became Hokage, so you have to be prepared to work hard, he said with a nod. He slammed his palm to the ground while yelling, biting his thumb and repeating the hand signals, I know. There is no easy path to becoming Hokage. Calling forth jutsu. A thick column of smoke emerged, only to expose a tiny tadpole. Jiraiya and Naruto's gazes twitched as they both fixed themselves on the little flapping tadpole. prior to the tadpole going back to its nest. Jiraiya said, "This is going to take a lot more work than I thought," while Naruto hung his head in humiliation. "However, at least we now know where you are, at the beginning. Training has won, too." Jiraiya attempted to reassure the young man as Naruto raised his head a little in hope. He acknowledged, although your father did manage to summon a regular toad on his first try, as Naruto sagged once more. "But hey, this is not bad for your first attempt. And your father was a prodigy back then. Heck, the first time I'll admit I only managed to summon a tadpole myself, and look at me now." He replied with a smile. Jiraiya collapsed, and Naruto chuckled. "A homeless pervert?" he exclaimed, "a sage. And a successful author." As Jiraiya and Naruto both laughed a little. As the sun began to set, he said, "Well, it's getting late. We'll call it quits for today and pick it up again tomorrow. Come on, let's get something to eat, my treat." Thinking of his favorite food, ramen, excited Naruto. "Yeah, I could go for some right about now." He observed that Naruto's enormous smile was gradually turning into a sad smile. "Huh. Figures, if you're anything like your mother, you'll have a huge appetite for the stuff," he said. "Hey," he said, catching Jiraiya's attention in return. Jiraiya began, "Can you tell me more about them?" he asked, nodding. He led the child away, saying, "Sure kid, let me tell you about the day they chose the name for you." As they walked back to Konoha, his voice trailed off, "I was working on this novel and I wanted to show your father. I got the idea from some ramen, and they..." As he learned more about his parents, their personalities, and their goals for him, Naruto paid close attention. He hadn't paid attention to anything for a long time, and he didn't even once interrupt. How was he able to? In a single day, he was discovering more about his parents than he had ever known in his life. He could not possibly miss any of it. Later on that evening, Gaara of the Sand, enduring the aftereffects of his insomnia once more, gazed up at the moon. A curse the one-tailed beast's father had placed on him ever since he sealed it inside of him. The one-tailed beast would take over and go on a rampage through the village due to the way the seal was made. Gazing at the moon was the only thing that seemed to calm him down. Naturally, though, when the moon is full, he becomes more nervous. He looked down from his perch to see one of the Otobakure sound ninjas, Dosu, approaching him steadily when he heard someone approaching him. He said to the red-haired teen, "Ah. A shame, do you ever sleep?" But all she did was glare at him. He said, rolling up his sleeve to reveal his sound gauntlets, "I was hoping to catch you off guard in your sleep so that I can face Sasuke in the finals. I have my orders after all." He was getting ready to attack when he said, "I know all about your sand attacks. Do you wonder which is faster, my sound or your sand?" Gaara just let out a frustrated sigh as sand started to accumulate around him. As the sand engulfed the sound ninja, it assumed a more grotesque shape and said, "You're annoying. And he gets more bloodthirsty when the moon is full." Fear echoed through Dosu's spirit as he saw the sand take on a monstrous form, causing his eyes to widen. Before the sand crushed him, all he could say was, "W. What the hell are you?" His body was reduced to a deformed corpse. Kabuto and Baki observed from a distance, seeing the entire conflict from beginning to end. Kabuto studied the one-tailed Jinchuriki, a sly smile hiding behind his glasses. "So that's his real identity? Amazing, even though it's just the one." "Tails," Kabuto said, watching as Baki furrowed his brow on the one visible part of his face. Kabuto's lack of concern for his fellow sound ninja worried Baki a little. "Are you sure this was okay? He was a sound ninja, after all, your ally." Baki narrowed his eyes and Kabuto spoke, "It's fine. He had outlived his purpose and had no real chance against Sasuke even if he managed to beat Gaara." As Hayate hid from the two around the corner, Baki questioned, "But I thought his purpose was to test Sasuke's abilities?" Hayate went to see his sweetheart Yugo to make sure she was okay following the incident at the hospital involving the Anbu guards assigned to watch over Sasuke Uchiha. Following that and their lunar pledge, he was tasked with determining the identity of Kabuto Yakushi, the man whom Kakashi Hitaki had named as the attacker. After tracking him down, he arrived at this spot, where he appeared to be meeting up with a Jonin from Baki's sand village. He drew his eyes closer, trying to hide from the two. Baki raised an eyebrow and Kabuto said, "Oh, well, there's no need for that anymore." I had the task of abducting Sasuke-kun, but I failed. Yep, and now they know I'm a spy for the Sound. Baki looked at Kabuto, who appeared to be admitting with pride. That's not good news. If they found out you're a spy and find out about this meeting, our plan to crush the leaf will be effectively over before it can begin. I thought you were supposed to be Orochimaru's right hand man. Yet you got discovered and still chose to meet up with me. Seems sloppy if you ask me, Baki said with a grin that narrowed with disdain. After this, taking Sasuke won't be a problem at all. I wanted to see how they would react to this information and see how they would respond, Kabuto told Baki, rubbing his hands together in frustration. You were the ones who came to us, remember? The Sand will only act behind the scenes, that is the will of the Kazekage, Baki told Kabuto, nodding as Hayate became agitated. If it looks like you will fail, then the Sand will withdraw. It's not good, and why are the allies Sand and Sound? Are you going to launch an assault? But why? The Sand have long been our allies, how is this possible? As he listened further, Hayate questioned himself. Baki accepted a scroll from Kabuto and nodded. Here are our plans. My lord recommended that our allies be informed, so please do so. Once we make our move, there will be no going back, Kabuto said with a nod. This is not good, I must tell Lord Hokage. As he made his way out, Hayate said, if the Sand and Sound have united for an invasion, I need to warn them. In addition, Kabuto blurted out, shocking Hayate. With a shake of his head, Baki responded, I think it's about time we clean up the little spy that's been watching us. I'll test what kind they have moving around, Kabuto mentioned. No, I'll handle him. After all, as partners, the Sand needs to contribute to the plan. The sick Jonin's eyes widened, and he turned to face Hayate. It's just one rat. With the goal of returning to the Hokage's manor or a more populated area in order to alert his fellow ninja, Hayate ran as quickly as he could from that location. But Baki cornered him on a deserted rooftop, and he was unable to escape. After exchanging kunai blades in a furious exchange, Baki proceeded to spit sand into his eye. They landed on a barren roof, but Hayate dodged every blow. Standing at opposite ends of Baki, Hayate gripped his blade in its sheath without pulling it out. Slowly drawing his blade, Hayate said, My Mr. Examiner. What are you doing out here so late at night? It's not very polite to spy on others, you know, to Baki's mocking remarks. As he readied his move, Hayate thought to himself, cough, cough. This is not good. Looks like I have no choice but to fight. Shadow clone strikes. As they raced in the direction of the Sand Jonin, Hayate was able to call forth two clones. Hayate brought his blade down, but Baki was able to take out the other two. Hayate's blade slashed at the man's shoulder, saying, Leaf style, Dance of the Crescent Moon. But the blow was too light because the blade lodged in the Sand Ninja's flak jacket. With the blade stuck in his shoulder, Baki asked, I see. So this is the Leaf's Dance of the Crescent Moon technique? As Hayate's eyes grew wide. It is immobile. Before Baki grasped his blade with his free hand, Hayate pondered. Baki complimented Hayate, to master a technique at such a young age is impressive, as he attempted to free his sword. The wind was gathering around Baki's index and middle finger as he held up his hand. However, a steel blade can be stopped, Baki said, gazing into Hayate's eyes as the wind whipped around his fingers. Nothing can thwart a wind blade. Blades of wind tore through Hayate's body before he could even react, and his last thoughts were of his village, his fellow ninja, and his lover Yugo, and how much he hated that he had let them down. The following day, Waterfall. Jiraiya brought a small set of weights, a stack of books, and some training equipment when he met Naruto early in the morning. What's all this for pervy? Sage? Jiraiya moaned and Naruto questioned. Jiraiya bemoaned, I wish you wouldn't call me that, as Naruto protruded his tongue. Well, stop being a pervert. Even my mother was aware of you. Jiraiya sighed and Naruto said so in her journal. In any case, we're bringing your training back a little since I want to make up for the time we lost and help you prepare for the test. Jiraiya remarked as Naruto felt a tiny tick on his head, concentrating on developing more control over your chakra, and perhaps drill some strategy into that hollow skull you call a head. Hi. I don't have a hollow head. Did I really make it to the semi-finals? Jiraiya shook his head, but Naruto boasted. Hardly. Considering what I could find out, you hardly got by. You were unaware that the purpose of the written exam was to utilize your knowledge of information gathering techniques to cheat. One examinee beat you and that Sasuke boy up in the forest. Although, it's best he doesn't know that it was Orochimaru, and you defeated the Inuzuka by farting in his face. You lucked out, brat. Face it. As Naruto moaned and hung his head, he said to the young child, by all accounts you should have lost, or failed after the first part of the exam. However, it's not the end of the world, and you can still make a difference in the finals. All you have to do is demonstrate to them that you are or can become a Chunin. And it entails demonstrating combat prowess, skill, and strategy. The final portion of the exam will determine the outcome, while the first two sections concentrated on survival and reconnaissance. Hey, I haven't done this since Minato was my pupil. Though to be honest, that kid was so talented he shined even me in the end. Jiraiya said, going into full mentor mode, as Naruto picked up one of the books on strategy and already felt his brain was about to burst. Oh my god, must I do this? As Jiraiya nodded, he asked. If you want to get promoted, yes, otherwise if you don't you might find yourself having to do it again down the line. You wouldn't want that, would you? He asked as Naruto could only imagine not getting promoted because of his lack of studying. Ever since he was young he hated studying, all those books and long paragraphs and lectures bored him to death. Granted, he didn't have anyone around to teach him properly until Iruka, but he still never found the idea not all that appealing. But then he thought about everything his parents had to go through to become shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, and he remembered the words he told Konohamaru. There were no shortcuts to becoming Hokage. So whether he liked it or not, he had to study. Okay pervy. Sage, let's do this. That's the spirit. And don't call me pervy. Sage. Call me sensei. Okay, pervy. Sensei. That's a bet. Hey. You little brat. Naruto had only been training for a day when he still couldn't fully summon a toad. Although Minato no longer had the seal Orochimaru had placed on top of him, the boy's chakra control remained inadequate. To effectively summon a toad into battle, the jutsu needed a significant amount of chakra, but only so far. Summoning jutsu. Naruto exclaimed, slamming his palm to the floor as a massive cloud of smoke and the summoning seal materialized. But in place of a toad, Naruto bemoaned, still a tadpole, as he and Jiraiya peered down at the tiny tadpole writhing on the ground. Jiraiya shrugged and he asked, you'd think little guys like these shouldn't be able to be summoned, right? As the tadpole poofed back to Mount Myoboku, Jiraiya spoke, a true summoner can effectively call the desired summon they need. But that requires focused and precise chakra control. Until you gain proper control of your chakra, your summon is going to continue to be random. Jiraiya motioned for Naruto to sit down and held up one finger, saying, but don't take it too harshly, as the old saying goes, Konoha wasn't built in a day, so we just need to keep practicing. Besides, there's more to work on than just your chakra control. First off, your tactics. Strategy is an important part of any battle. By planning, and knowing your opponent's next move, you can effectively control the battlefield. The Chunin exams are more of a simulation of what it's like to be a Chunin. How your decisions will affect how real life missions will play out. Luckily, because it's only an exam, you've seen how your opponents can fight. In a normal battle, you wouldn't be so lucky. While the old man has told me of your unique ability to come up with effective plans on the fly, it would be more impressive to the judges if you showed that kind of thinking during the finals, Jiraiya told him as Naruto shot up a little. Jiraiya sighed and held up a second finger as he exclaimed, hey. I've been reading all those books you gave me. It's not my fault it's all so long and boring. Second, is your chakra control. Despite your large reserves, your chakra control is pretty bad, kid. Not entirely your fault, lack of guidance and patience can be attributed to me in the academy, he said in a somewhat ashamed tone. But it's also due to your large chakra reserves. The advantage of such larger reserves is that you can use a higher class of jutsu. It's why the normal clone technique doesn't work for you. Because you keep overloading the jutsu. But the downside is that having larger reserves means a greater need for control. He emphasized, and Naruto nodded. Third, is your jutsus. I know you only have the basics. Something I need to talk to the old man about. But at your age, genin should know at least some other jutsus. However, some of them are clan members, so they are more likely to learn from their clans. I can try and teach you other jutsu, but given the time we have left the jutsu wouldn't be all powerful. And I doubt I can teach you how to change your chakra nature in time to increase their effectiveness. Jiraiya sighed as Naruto furrowed. He sighed and Jiraiya asked, change my chakra nature? He asked, let me guess, you don't know about chakra nature, do you? To which Jiraiya rubbed his face and Naruto nodded. He shook his head, oh boy, I've got a lot to work with. Naruto nodded and he said, okay, so you know that chakra is what powers jutsu, yes? Okay, good. Well, there are 5 basic elements that chakra can be molded into. Earth, fire, wind, water and lightning. Well, people are born with either 1 or 2 of these elements. Until it's tested, you won't know what jutsu you'd be more capable of doing. Say you were born with fire chakra, you would be more capable of changing your chakra into fire, thus making you able to perform fire-style jutsu easier than say water-style. But that's not to say you can learn to use other jutsus, so long as you know the hand signs. It's just more preferred to know how to change your element into that particular nature and it takes more training. But, as you are right now, I can't teach you any such elemental jutsu until you have a firmer grasp on her basics. He explained. He remembered Sasuke using fireball jutsu, and Jiraiya sighed. But Sasuke can use fireball jutsus, why can't I? He asked. He more than likely knows the hand signs and practiced that jutsu a lot when he was back in the academy. Plus, given he's a Uchiha, he would have been born with fire elemental chakra. The most common type of chakra nature in the land of fire. So it was easier for him. If I taught you such a jutsu, you'd burn through unnecessary amounts of chakra, he said while Naruto was grumbling. He complained, of course, it's for Sasuke, as Jiraiya waved his hand. Jiraiya raised his 4th finger, and Naruto became excited. Relax, brat, I can still teach you a few non-element based jutsus, like ones that involve your shadow clones. Which appears to be your specialty, he said. He started, and finally, is your temperament, but Naruto tipped his head. Jiraiya sighed, and Naruto asked, his face bewildered. My temper. What? Your temperament, your anger. From what I've gathered, you tend to fly off the handle sometimes and charge into a fight without thinking ahead. And seeing how you're revered up to fight this Neji, you're not going to be thinking straight. He said clearly as Naruto got up. Jiraiya nodded and Naruto argued, but I have to beat him. He said all those horrible things to Hinata. I can't just let that go. As Naruto appeared perplexed, Jiraiya remarked, and I'm not, I think what you're doing for her is honorable, and kind of cute actually. Naruto felt his blood pressure rise. A young man declaring that he shall battle the one that harmed a beautiful maiden. That's top grade reading material right there, he said. He bared his teeth and growled, shut it, pervy sage. Jiraiya gave him a serious look. But my main point is that you shouldn't rush into this battle. It's better to approach a battle with a well-thought out strategy and a level head than one that is tainted by bitterness and anger. Your father was a highly skilled shinobi in the lands because he could maintain composure under pressure. Naruto paused and glanced off into the distance, seemingly able to make out his father's head in the Hokage monument. He sighed and folded his arms as he sat down, saying, my dad, huh? So strange to hear that. He said, I guess you've got a point, pervy sensei, as Jiraiya nodded. However, the pervy sensei remark caused his eyelid to twitch. I'll disregard that, but don't worry. If everything goes according to plan, I think you can defeat Neji in the finals and show him that fate is not as final as he believes it to be, Jiraiya remarked, smirking to himself that Naruto was supposed to be the child of prophecy, according to the Toad's prophecies. Alright, so what do I do now? He inquired, while Jiraiya hummed to himself. Naruto began, then scrunched his face in concentration. Well, the first thing you need to know is your opponent. What can you tell me about the Hyuga? He asked. Well, they're a clan with, the Byakugan, Naruto blurted out, referring to the wrong clan. Jiraiya corrected him, Byakugan, and Naruto nodded. He tried to recall Kurenai's or was it Shino's explanation during Hinata's match against Neji. Alright, and they can see chakra, I think? Correct, the Hyuga clan can see chakra using their Byakugan. A dojutsu that is similar to the Sharingan, but grants them a near 360 degrees field of view and Ray vision. But not only that, but they can also see the chakra coils within your body and have a unique fighting style that allows them to target the tenketsu in the body. And before you ask, he prevented Naruto from asking. Tenketsu are the chakra points located around the body where chakra can be released, such as your hands and feet. By targeting it with their gentle fist style, they can effectively render a person incapable of using their chakra until the tenketsu are unsealed by a medic. It's what made them one of the best close range combatants of the Hidden Leaf, he explained to Naruto. Really? That explains what happened to Hinata. Ah, man. How am I supposed to go up against that? I call Keke Genkei's hacks. He yelled as Jiraiya laughed. He titled his head and said, Relax kid, the Hyuga clan may be tough, but they ain't invincible. No one is. You just need to think carefully about how to overcome Neji. He asked, I don't suppose you'd tell me how to beat him? Jiraiya shook his head in response. He remarked, Nope, no can do, as Naruto recoiled. Jiraiya nodded and he said, Huh. But why not? Aren't you supposed to train me? I am, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give you the answers straight up. The point of the exam is for you to prove your potential as a Chunin. I can help you train and make you stronger, but I can't tell you how to win all your battles. That will be up to you, he said while Naruto was staring at him. That sounded really wise, Jiraiya smirked, and Naruto said. Naruto stared at him before he made a simple hand sign. Of course it was. I am after all the great and gallant Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. My wisdom knows no bounds, so sorry kid. But you're going to have to figure it out on your own. He said. Sexy. Jutsu. Gallant huh? Naruto put his hands together and changed into a sultry female version of himself, causing Jiraiya to bleed profusely and almost take off. Jiraiya returned to Naruto as Naruto changed back, saying, More like perverted if you ask me. He marveled at the perverted ninjutsu and said to Naruto, Hee, interesting jutsu kid, though I doubt it will work on this Neji. Then a dark thought crossed his mind, wait. If Kushina was alive right now and she saw jutsu, so he didn't need to finish the sentence. Anyway, let's return to your instruction. The finals are in just 28 days. Not much time, but that's not a concern for us. He waved a tiny leaf over Naruto's forehead and said, Now, let's concentrate on some of the chakra control exercises. Naruto craned his eyes to the leaf. Huh, this is. You seem to recognize it, huh? It's known as the leaf concentration method. I take it that you heard about this at the academy? He questioned as nervous laughter burst from Naruto. Jiraiya sighed and he said, Yeah. The thing is, I kind of didn't pay attention when Iruka Sensei tried to teach it to me. He rubbed the bridge of his nose and said, You're not making this easy kid. Alright, so you essentially need to direct your chakra toward that leaf and make it adhere to your forehead. It's a technique to help you concentrate both mentally and more on your chakras. Which, based on what I've observed over the last few days, is pretty dispersed, he remarked, to which Naruto angrily clicked his tongue. Chick. I'm not that dim-witted, pervy. Sage. He bellowed. I told you not to call me that anymore. Look, we don't have much time, he said to himself as he raised his hands and took a deep breath of calm. We need to help you become more focused, better master your chakra, and possibly even access the power of the 9 tails. Naruto sighed and cast a downward glance at his stomach as he said, That's the only way you'll move up the ranks. Do you think I can learn to control its chakra? He asked, holding a hand over the seal while contemplating the creature that had essentially forced him into solitude and loneliness. The 9 tails. Jiraiya looked up at Naruto, who was scratching his cheek. To be honest, I'm not sure, but your father must have believed you would, Jiraiya said, hanging his head. Otherwise he wouldn't have sealed it in you. You know, your father always had a reason behind everything he did. Made plans and determined what needed to be done. For whatever reason, he trusted you, his son, with the village's future. He was a man ahead of his time. Tells a lot about his faith in you, he said to Naruto, who gave him a gentle smile and a warm feeling in his chest. Thanks, pervy sage, he said, and Jiraiya just sighed. He was relieved to see the boy a little happier, even though it seemed that his mother's biological characteristics were too strong for him to overcome. Alright, Concentrate on the leaf concentration technique for the next several hours. Naruto nodded as Jiraiya gave her the order. After that, we'll spend some time working on your taijutsu, then on summoning and finally tapping into the 9 tails chakra. Alright, hold on, what will you do next? The man with white hair smiled and asked. With a perverted smile slowly forming on his face, he said, I'm going to go and do some important research. See you in a few hours, my boy. As he hurried to the hot springs, he exclaimed, and Naruto sighed. Typical, Naruto sighed as he pressed the leaf to his forehead and focused, visualizing his chakra flowing in the direction of the leaf, the way he had directed it to adhere to the tree's surface with his feet. It was difficult for him to stay focused because of his scattered mind and the little noises that kept bothering him, like the birds, the occasional fish that jumped out of the water, and even the tiny critters climbing up the trees, but he sat there among the peaceful sound of nature, the gentle rushing of the stream, and the cool breeze of the spring air silently blowing past him. He persisted in this for an hour before. Oh no! Naruto cried out abruptly, this is so boring. With his hands in the air, he cried out, why does this have to be so boring? If I want to be Neji, I should be learning a new jutsu or something, he groaned in complaint. He said, lying flat on his back, but here I am sitting on my butt trying to make a leaf stick to my head. But, he suddenly said, peering through the tree leaves to the light penetrating through, I think Mom and Dad had to do something like this when they were my age. I guess I really shouldn't complain, he bitterly thought, imagining his rival and teammate learning all sorts of new skills while he was stuck relearning the fundamentals. Growling. Aw man, it must be lunchtime, he sat up, but I need to continue my training. Oh. His stomach rumbled suddenly as he stared at it. Yes, I am aware. He made the well-known hand gesture of crossing his fingers, shadow clone jutsu. Alright, head to Ichiraku Ramen and grab some takeout ramen. He shouted as 2 clones materialized. The clone nodded and he gave the order. Boss, you did it. The clone turned to leave and uttered those words. And you dare not consume it. As the Naruto clone glared at him, he yelled. What? Oh please, hurry up. Why not? First of all, I am the one who is starving. Second, it would be a waste on you because you're just clones and I doubt you two are able to eat. After saying, oh yeah. You got a point, the clone angrily leapt away, leaving the original and the second clone behind. Thus, what should I do? Naruto laughed and asked the second clone. Indeed, I do require some companionship, and who could be a better fit than me? That seems a little depressing, doesn't it? Yeah. Village of Konoha. Sakura was aimlessly strolling through the village after she had gone to see Sasuke in the hospital only to be told that no guests were permitted. She started reflecting on her performance in the Chunin exam. Sure, she had more control over her chakra than Naruto and Sasuke, but that was only because of how limited her chakra was. She was smarter than Naruto, but he had advanced to the finals, while she had finished in a tie with Ino. And Sasuke, the boy she loved, was acting much colder toward her ever since he had been bitten by that strange guy in the forest. What's going on with me? When did I become so frail? As she strolled through the village, she asked herself, if this continues, I'm going to fall behind seriously. Naruto and Sasuke made it to the finals. She thought back to the Forest of Death, when the curse mark overtook Sasuke and he mercilessly beat up that sound ninja. Sasuke's been acting colder, especially after what happened in the forest. I used to mock Naruto for being dead last, but lately he's gotten so much stronger. And Sasuke. She looked up at the sky and sighed to herself, I'm worried about what will happen to him. Perhaps I should focus on improving myself? I've neglected my ninja duties because I've been preoccupied with Sasuke. And Naruto has come so far beyond me that it's almost hard to believe. She recalled all the times Naruto would act haughty or unyielding, considering himself to be a small child in comparison to Sasuke, but she also recalled the occasions when he stood up and demonstrated his bravery and resolve. It was an inspiring thing to her. As she made her way home, she said, maybe I've been a bit too hard on Naruto. He's not the same kid we knew from the academy. However, I am not going on one of his dates. My heart still belongs to Sasuke. Just as he was humming to himself, she noticed her teammate wearing his well-known orange jumpsuit. I'm going to get some ramen. Ramen. Sakura let out a sigh and he hummed. When he suddenly spotted her, she said, of course, deciding not to bother him. Ah. Salutations, Sakura. Chan. Sakura winced a little at the volume of his yelling of her name, but she simply waved back and grinned. Hi Naruto, how are you doing? Did you not think you should be training with Kakashi? Sensei? She asked, watching as the boy skipped towards her. As Naruto snorted, she questioned. No, I have to train with someone else because Kakashi says he's going to train Sasuke. The guy is a complete pervert, that's the only issue. He grumbled a little as Sakura gave a nod. I understand. Then, why aren't you training at this moment? It's true that the finals are in just 28 days. Tell me you're not being lazy, please. With an angry accusation, she shook Naruto's head. Obviously not. I'm working really hard to improve my chakra control. All I have to do is grab some food and resume training. I need to make that Neji guy pay for what he did to Hinata, he uttered, balling his fist. With the same resolve he displayed when he made the pledge, he uttered those words. Sakura blinked, hiding a smile. It was obvious to her and the other students in her grade that the Hyuga princess had a huge crush on the resident dead last of the academy, but they didn't care because, in Sakura and Ino's words, practically every girl was after the much more handsome and talented Sasuke. Therefore, they didn't mind because they couldn't understand what the shy girl saw in the blonde idiot, although after the wave mission, they could kind of see what she saw, his determination, his loyalty, and his willingness to keep going despite the overwhelming odds against him. How is Hinata doing, by the way? Naruto's no Sasuke, but still, oh well, the least I can do is give her a little help, she mused to herself. Have you visited her yet? As Naruto blinked, she questioned. Oh. No. I haven't had time for training because I've kind of caught up. Why, in your opinion, should I? Sakura felt a blood vessel appear on her head, so she asked him. You idiot, of course. You vowed to exact revenge on her for her honor. And you really shouldn't tamper with a maiden's honor. You fool, the least you could do is make sure she is aware of it. The clone vanished in a cloud of smoke as she proceeded to smash her fist squarely into Naruto's face. What? Sakura blinked, gazing at the location where Naruto was. Wait, that was a clone? So, where is the actual Naruto now? Waterfall. That particular situation. Gah! Yelled Naruto, and his clone as a wave of knowledge suddenly passed through his mind and brought back memories of Sakura's fist striking him in the face. What the heck? Why did Sakura just hit me like that? It's not like I didn't want to visit her. He screamed. Naruto nodded, and his clone said, yeah. Tell me about it. Why does she always have to be so mean about it? Prior to him and the clone pausing and blinking in bewilderment. He turned to face the clone and said, wait. How did we know that? Searching for answers, Naruto asked himself, how did we know Sakura just hit us? We were here the whole time, while Sakura's in the village. But how did? Clone Naruto questioned, did we just get the memories of the clone? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Naruto replied, I don't know, the scroll didn't say anything about that, and the clone gave him a worried look. He acknowledged, well, we did kind of skim some parts, as Naruto let out a sigh. Yeah, you're probably right. We should ask someone, to find out what it means. Said Naruto. The clone questioned, should we ask Pervy Sage when he gets back? While Naruto shook his head. He's gone of perving and we have no idea when he'll be back. And we both know I can't concentrate if I got this on my mind. Kakashi. Sensei? The clone asked, to which Naruto shot him a cold look. He's off training Sasuke somewhere, and I doubt he'd tell us about it. You know, I think he doesn't believe we'll make it past Neji. But we'll show him. Naruto sighed. The clone asked the third Hokage, how about the old man? He might know what's going on, it was in the Forbidden Scroll after all. Maybe, but I think we shouldn't bother him as much. I'm still a little peeved that he kept secrets from us. Not to mention he'd be busy preparing for the exam. Plus I don't think the secretary likes us barging in all the time, said Naruto. Both the clone and Naruto shook their heads, then the clone said, how about that closet pervert, Ebisu? No, both of them replied, feeling suddenly insulted in the village after learning that Jiraiya would take care of Naruto's training from the Hokage. Well, who else might we ask? As he and the clone tried to think of someone they could question about the shadow clone technique, Naruto questioned. Ding. Bonk, bonk, bonk. Aha. Sensei Iruka. As Naruto got to his feet, they both yelled, "He's an academy teacher and the one who helped me pass." More about the shadow clone, that's for sure. He wagered as his clone nodded before dispelling. Alright. Let us search for Iruka-sensei. As he raced out of the training grounds, he yelled, "Ramen Ichiraku." Iruka Amino, who thanked the sage, breathed a sigh of relief as he enjoyed the aroma of his ramen. It had been a long day filled with paperwork, grades, and the occasional disruptive student, but none of them were as bad as Naruto. Konohamaru Sarutobi, one of his students, had admiringly taken to mastering Naruto's perverted ninjutsu, one of the many prankster level jutsu that Naruto had created during his academy days. And speaking of Naruto, there were times when it was difficult for anyone to believe that Iruka could be so patient and caring to him when he was the demon fox and everyone in the village blamed him for everyone's loved ones' deaths, including Iruka's parents. However, Iruka had long since realized that Naruto was really just like him, a child abandoned by the nine tails and left without caring parents, and that he wanted to be there for him when no one else could. Naruto was like a little brother to him, or maybe something more like a son, but he didn't fully know that yet. He still remembered hearing how his team's first C rank mission had escalated to an A rank mission, and he worried about the young genin. Sure, he proved he had changed after the mission and was proud to hear that he made it to the finals of the Chunin exams. But he was still worried about him. He was happy for all of his former students who had advanced to the final round at the moment and hoped they would keep moving forward in their quest to become skilled shinobi. Have a long day, Iruka? When preparing the next batch of ramen, Tucci and his daughter asked, "Normally you would only come here with Naruto, or if you've had long work hours. Surely it must be related to the Chunin exams?" Iruka nodded as he asked. "I feel a mixture of pride and worry for my former students. Shikamaru, Shino, Sasuke, and Naruto advanced to the finals, from what I've heard." Chuki blinked as Iruka spoke. "I'm not surprised about the first three, but knowing that Naruto has made it this far makes me feel even more proud of him." "How did Naruto get to the finals?" "I'll admit, that child sure does have a way of surprising people." Iruka and Tucci both laughed at that. "Yes, I will admit that when Naruto advanced past the second exam stage, I was taken aback. He certainly has grown up, more than I could have ever imagined," he said, taking his chopsticks and beginning to eat. "But at this point, I should learn to expect the unexpected from the #1 hyperactive ninja of the Hidden Leaf," he said, looking at the broth and remembering a lone Naruto, sitting on the swing as everyone avoided him. "Sensei Iruka." Iruka jostled and choked somewhat on his ramen, as Naruto burst into the stand. "Iruka-sensei. I have to speak with." "Whoa, ramen. Salutations, old man Tucci. Please give me a large bowl of miso pork." Suddenly distracted, Naruto ordered ramen and yelled. Iruka remarked, "Of course, he hasn't grown up that much," to Tucci's amusement. "All right, one miso pork here." Naruto smiled and sat down on the stool. Tucci said as he and Ayami got to work. "Hey. It's going to be really fantastic." The owners of the stand had long since noticed Naruto's habits and had quickly prepared the ramen for him, so he could already taste it and chuckled. Naruto grinned as he broke apart the chopsticks and tucked in. Naruto, didn't you have a question for me?" Before his noodle brain finished cooking, Naruto paused midway through his noodles to gaze at his sensei, prompting Iruka to ask. "Aha. Yes, that is correct. Sensei Iruka. I require your assistance. I have so much information, what about Naruto? My shadow clones are at issue." "Is it your shadow clones?" As Naruto nodded, he asked. "Yes. See, I sent one of my clones here to get some ramen while I trained in the leaf concentration technique you taught me. Clearly, though, he never made it. I haven't seen Hinata in the hospital, so when he bumped into Sakura, she decked him in the face," Naruto clarified. "Hinata? Why would you need to pay her a hospital visit?" As Naruto picked at his cheek, he inquired. "Oh, you see, she lost badly to her cousin during their fight, and he called her a lot of nasty names. Saying that I didn't like that she was pitiful and weak. Thus, I sort of vowed to show him wrong," Naruto stated, receiving a nod from Iruka. "Interesting, I seem to recall Neji from Academy. Like Sasuke, he was an excellent student in the Rookie of the Year," Iruka recalled, to Naruto's mocking sneer. Naruto shook his head, thinking bitterly, of course he was. Anyway, Sakura got mad at me and punched me in the face. The odd thing is that Sakura and the clone were in the village when I was at the training ground. How in the world did I acquire those memories, then? You have to be knowledgeable about that, don't you? Iruka blinked and Naruto questioned. I do, of course. The shadow clone is a jutsu that only a select few Chunin and Jonin are capable of. However, they aren't entirely built for combat. Did you not read that section of the Forbidden Scroll about how they were designed for reconnaissance? As Naruto scratched the back of his head and looked away sheepishly, Iruka questioned. Indeed, Iruka-sensei is the thing. I kind of skipped some parts, hee. As Iruka sighed, he nervously laughed. Obviously, you did. All right, I suppose I should provide a quick summary. Iruka clarified, the Shadow Clone Jutsu was developed in the early years of Konoha by the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. You mean the stone-faced guy who is always frowning, the second Hokage? Iruka sighed as he shook his head at his less diplomatic word choice, but Naruto asked as he leaned out and pointed at the second Hokage's stone face. Yes, that's Naruto. As far as I can remember, the shadow clone duplicates the user and distributes their chakra equally among the clones. A Jonin can typically only create 2 to 3 clones at most due to the quick depletion of chakra required. In addition, the user's reserve of chakra decreases as they create more clones. However, I have created hundreds of clones. Naruto has never experienced a low level of chakra reserves, Iruka nodded. Well, Naruto, you seem to be able to avoid that effect because your chakra reserves are larger than average. Though it might also be related to. He trailed off as Naruto deduced the meaning. The chakra of 9 tails. Okay, let's get back to the historical lesson. The second Hokage invented the method to serve as recon, scout the enemy's position, or use decoys to steal information and return it to the user without endangering themselves. Consider it as a transfer of memories from a clone to the original. I'm shocked that you haven't noticed already. He questioned, thinking to himself, Naruto. Well, not really. I've only ever used my clones in combat. Naruto titled his head and guessed, I guess I didn't notice because they were all in the same place. But wait, how does this whole memory transfer thing work? Well, I'm not positive, but I think that any remaining chakra in the clone that wasn't utilized is returned to the user. Iruka surmised as Naruto considered this, so that chakra carries with it the memories and experience of the clone and gives it back to the user. He said to himself, recollections and experience. Hey, Iruka-sensei, what would happen if I trained with my clones? Iruka paused and he asked. Alright, so, I dunno? Something like this hasn't been tried before, primarily because of the drain the clones have on the user, Iruka acknowledged. However, is it really possible? Iruka considered that for a moment. What? Iruka-sensei, what are you thinking about? Before turning to face his former pupil, Naruto questioned Iruka. Well, this is just a theory, but you have insane stamina and larger than average chakra reserves. Once more, keep in mind that this is just a theory, but training with a shadow clone would give you twice as much experience as training alone. Naruto's eyes widened as Iruka said, that means you could achieve more than a month's worth of training in only a week. Whoa, this is serious. That sounds fantastic. Naruto gave a cheer, and Iruka took his hand. Naruto, hold on. This is just a theory, as I mentioned. Since no one else has ever had chakra reserves as large as yours, nothing similar has ever been attempted. Either it could or it couldn't work. As Naruto pondered, Iruka remarked, you would have to test it, or ask someone who knows more about the shadow clones than I do. He said, raising an eyebrow at Iruka, I see. I guess I'll have to ask Pervy Sage when he gets back. Pervert Sage? Oh, yeah, he's currently my new sensei. Pervy Sage is training me because Kakashi sensei is currently busy training Sasuke, Naruto uttered as Iruka spoke. I mean, what have I taught you about addressing people, and who is Pervy Sage? Naruto pouted and Iruka gave a small reprimand. To be respectful to them, but the guy is a total pervert. He was peeking into the women's bathhouse when I found him. That guy is supposed to be my G. I can't believe it. Fortunately, Naruto refrained from saying, Godfather, but not from meeting Iruka's scrutinizing gaze. What is he yours? Iruka questioned as nervous laughter burst from Naruto. Oh my gosh, my new sensei. Yes, it's my misfortune that any instructor I have after you is a pervert. Okay, I appreciate the dinner. Iruka-sensei, I've got to get back to training. Thanks for the tip. Naruto slammed down a few Ryo notes and ran off. Hold on, Naruto. Iruka called out to him, but he had already left. That boy, I swear, he uttered as he returned to his seat to finish his ramen. That boy, who had been through so much, lived a life of loneliness and isolation for something he had no control over, but despite everything stacked against him, he still managed to persevere and was determined to become Hokage one day. He thought back to the night he gave Naruto his headband and the smile that was on his face. He said, "Good luck Naruto, I'm rooting for you," demonstrating his continued faith in his pupil. Afterwards, hours. Waterfall. With a happy, perverted smile on his face, Jiraiya returned and held his notes in his hand. He, that was a good research trip, he said. As he made his way back to the waterfall, he thought to himself, I'm going to have so much material for my next book. I guess I should go and check on Naruto. If I had to guess, I'd say he's just about had it learning the leaf concentration technique and wants to try summoning again. With a soft smile, he reminisced about the days he spent training Minato. That boy shares his parents' drive, even though he is nothing like his father. He looked up at the sky, wondering if he would live long enough to witness it. Oh well, no time like the present, he said, walking back into the clearing and blinking in surprise. I know he'll become something truly amazing someday. The most peculiar thing Jiraiya noticed was that Naruto's control had improved since he had left, though not to the point where it was mastered. Rather, it was noticeably better than when he had left early that day. Naruto was sitting under the tree channeling chakra into his leaf, while around him were 20 other clones of himself as they all seemed to be practicing the same technique. Before moving toward the boy, he asked himself, that's strange, how did he manage to improve his chakra control so well in such a short time? I wasn't gone that long, was I? What's going on here, Naruto? As Naruto opened his eyes and faced the man, he posed the question. Oh. Pervert sage. What? You will not believe what I found out. Naruto yelled as he looked over to his clones. Okay guys, that's enough, he ordered as the clones nodded and all dispelled. Naruto stumbled slightly from the rush of information. Whoa. Man, I really should learn to stop and throw them all out at once. Whoa, Naruto, are you okay there? How in the world is this happening? He inquired, and Naruto smiled. You see, I discovered that the shadow clones I create give me all of their knowledge once they're dispelled, he remarked, raising Jiraiya's eyebrows. Jiraiya acknowledged, yes, I know how the shadow clone jutsu works, while Naruto smiled. So, Iruka-sensei, who I spoke with, calculated that using my clones for training will increase my experience. That implies I'll be able to master chakra control quickly. As Jiraiya blinked, he spoke. Are you serious? Yes, that might work, After they dispel, the shadow clones impart their wisdom and experience to the original. And you can make about 100 clones. This means that if you train with 100 clones every day, you could quickly acquire years of experience. Interesting, why didn't I think of this earlier? Naruto smiled in response. Because I am amazing. As Jiraiya shook his head, he spoke. Not so fast, brat, sure this will help you gain better chakra control, and maybe even help you learn some jutsus before the finals, but this doesn't mean you'll get physically stronger, he replied with a brow raised. Huh? What are you saying? I mean, the clone trick won't improve your physical body. Only your mind will. The only thing the shadow clone can impart is knowledge. Your physical form won't alter. Naruto sighed and he said, that will be up to you, putting in the manual hours. Jiraiya laughed as Naruto lamented, aw man, and here I thought I was going to be able to do all sorts of taijutsu like bushy brows. This is a good thing, kid, relax. It implies that things will go much more smoothly during training now. Well, you can now quickly catch up on everything you missed, but that means I'll have to keep an eye on all of your clones. And I would then lose out on my peak, that is, significant research. What a loss. As Naruto furrowed his brow, he sobbed. While Jiraiya was getting his act together, Naruto asked himself, why'd I always get the weird ones as my teachers? Alright, enough said. This is where things get serious. We'll put up a number of instructional techniques. You'll make 150 clones as part of your initial training. Every clone will be divided into 50 groups. Before going on to the following phase, each group will concentrate on a particular area of your training for a complete week. Recognize? As Naruto nodded, Jiraiya asked. Chakra control and knowledge will be covered in Phase 1. Your chakra element will be transformed in Phase 2. Learning new ninjutsu will be the main focus of Phase 3, and applying them in combat scenarios will be the main focus of Phase 4. You and I will practice summoning and taiji while all of this is going on, and we'll also try to summon the power of the Nine Tails. I'll admit that this plan will be challenging and demanding. Do you think you can manage it? As Naruto smiled and gave the man his fist, he questioned. Obviously. After all, I'm going to be Hokage. There's no way some training could turn me off. Jiraiya grinned at him as he shouted. Now, let's get down to business, kid, he said, giving Naruto a sly smile and a cross. Finger gesture. Many. Shadow clone technique. In the interim, Kikyo Castle. One of the Anbu did her best to contain her anger and despair as she looked down at the man, bending down to pick up his blade as she stared at the man who had taught her the art of the sword and to whom she had given her heart. A squad of Anbu stood over the corpse of Hayate, staring at their fallen comrade. Hayate, how is this possible? As she and the Anbu members gazed at him, she asked more questions for herself than Hayate. As they unfold a large scroll tarp and seal the corpse inside, the Anbu member exclaimed, This is bad. We must inform Lord Hokage. You go. You go, we must. She said in a tone that was detached and emotionless, I know. We must inform Lord Hokage. This situation is dire, but they knew she was in pain and, as Anbu Black Ops members and shinobi, they could not allow their feelings to overcome them. They fled the scene in haste, Yugo vowing in silence to track down and punish the person behind this personal farce, no matter how long it took. It had been a week since Jiraiya and Naruto learned that Naruto might be able to learn more skills thanks to the shadow clones. His daily growth in chakra control was steady but rapid, all thanks to the clone trick. He was able to efficiently manage his chakra flow and avoid wasting any extra chakra as a result of it. It was a step up from where he had been before, but he was still a long way from being a master of chakra control. As one group of clones focused on mastering his chakra control, another group read and wrote to make up for all the lessons Naruto had missed during his early years. At first, it was challenging because Naruto's short attention span and lack of excitement made it hard for the clones to focus. But after a while, as the trick became more effective and the clones kept writing and reading, it began to have an impact. Applying that knowledge, however, was a different story. Jiraiya and the real Naruto were occupied with teaching the boy the basics of taijutsu in the meantime. When faced with opponents who were significantly stronger than him in taijutsu, the boy's approach of charging in and hurling his fist at them was usually ineffective. To make up for it, he overpowered his opponent by using clones as a small army. However, the issue persisted when he ran out of clones and had to confront him directly. Not to add that the clones' lack of coordination matched that of their original. Jiraiya made the decision to instruct the boy in the proper use of his clones by having him coordinate with them during battles and going over some of the fundamentals he had picked up over his many years as a Toad Sage. With his fists swung left and right, Naruto charged at the sage, hoping to surprise the elderly man. Jiraiya, however, proved that he was not just one of the 3 legendary Sannin by effortlessly dodging the boy's blows like they were nothing. Jiraiya ducked and sidestepped the boy's fist, saying, You're doing it again, I told you to go through the basic steps. You just look like a street thug with the way you fight. He called forth 2 shadow clones, who all charged at the man, saying, Yeah. Well, I'm still getting the hang of it. Besides, you ain't seen nothing yet, pervy sage. Shadow clone jutsu. Jiraiya threw the clones and the original away like rag dolls, ducking and weaving to get past them. As Naruto charged and lunged at the man, his rage only increased. The man only caught him by the back of his shirt and threw him into the river. As chakra hit the water's surface, Naruto just about forced him into his feet. Jiraiya said, Impressive, at least your chakra control is getting better, while Naruto smiled. Naruto got up and exclaimed, This clone trick has helped me a lot. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes slightly, worried, but he continued, With this trick, I feel like I can do just about anything. He thought to himself, he's getting a little cocky, as Naruto charged at the man once more, attempting to use the taijutsu lesson against the sage. He ducked under the two clones that had not yet been released, then swept his legs at the man who leapt over the attack. After blocking Naruto's overhead kick and falling back to the ground, he pushed the character into one of his clones and used a spell to dispel it. When the other clone attempted to put the man in a headlock by lunging at him from behind, the man managed to grab the clone and toss it into the original. The clone screamed, "Ah!" as he crashed into the original and vanished in a cloud of smoke. Naruto moaned, lying on the ground, "Ow. Alright, that's sufficient for now. It's time for a rest," Jiraiya exclaimed, moving to assist Naruto in standing up. "You're getting better, Naruto, but you've still got to work on that habit of rushing in. I've told you over and over again to think before you act," he said while Naruto was grumbling. "Easy for you to say, you know it's not as easy as you and Kakashi-sensei tell me. I'm just not a thinking ahead kind of guy," Naruto grumbled. He said, "I have no doubt about that," and then extended a blue popsicle in his direction. After grabbing the icy confection, Naruto gestured for his clones to separate into smaller groups. Naruto grunted a little as the knowledge flooded his mind. Jiraiya and Naruto sat in the tree's shade, and Naruto bemoaned, "Can't believe I never knew about this, still got to get used to that." Jiraiya and Naruto were sitting in the shade when he said, "That's part of the reason you need to learn to pay attention to things. If you had read the scroll property you would have known about the clone's memory transfer." "Yes, indeed. Hey, did you Jiraiya asked, glancing at Naruto. He was curious, so he asked, "Did you ever do this kind of thing?" "With my dad?" The elderly wise man grinned amiably. "I did. Your father was one of my best students. He had a talent for ninjutsu that was unrivaled by his classmates. I was assigned to him by the old man, but over time I began to see him like a son. Heck, he even taught me a few things." Jiraiya reflected on his former pupil with fondness. Naruto nodded and said, "If you were assigned to him, did that mean you had a team like me?" "Did my dad have teammates?" He sighed sadly. "He did, but over time they fell one by one until only your father remained. I think that was part of the reason your father worked so hard. He wanted to bring an end to the senseless conflict that had plagued our world," he said while Naruto was looking down. He asked, "Do you remember their names?" And the elderly man nodded. Naruto nodded and he said, "I do, but it's been so long now, I find it best to leave them in peace." He asked, "What about my mother? Who was her sensei?" Jiraiya put a hand on his chin and asked. Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, "You know, I don't know. I was busy at the time training your father or doing important research." "You mean peeping?" he exclaimed, "important research." With a sigh. Naruto asked Jiraiya, "Other than that, I think your mother was mostly taught by what remained of her old clan before they were wiped out in the Third Great Shinobi War," and she answered. Curious about his alleged lost clan, Naruto said, "That's another thing I wanted to ask you, what were my mother's clan like? I've never heard of them before." "Well, I'm not surprised the younger generation doesn't know about them, they died off years ago. But back then the Uzumaki were once a great and powerful clan. They lived in Uzushiogakure, which roughly translated to, the land hidden by whirling tide pools. That symbol you have on your back there," pointed out the red swirl on Naruto's back, "was the symbol of the Uzumaki clan. They were distant relatives of the Senju clan, the ones that founded the village. They even assisted in founding Konohagakure, which is why you see all those Chunin and Jonin wear them on their flak jackets, to honor the clan that helped them prosper." He spoke to Naruto as he removed his jacket and stared at the red swirl. "Wow, I'm related to such an important clan, huh? Eat that Sasuke, I'm part of an important clan like you. Huh?" he yelled while grinning. He continued, "Don't get cocky, kid, the Uchiha were also part of the founding members of Konoha," as Naruto lowered his head. He said, Figures," and then blinked. Jiraiya sighed and he said, "Hey, if my clan was so important, why does no one remember them?" "That has mostly to do with what happened during the Third Great War. See, Uzushiogakure was feared by the other great nations due to their affinity for sealing jutsu," he said with a brow raised. Jiraiya shook his head and he said, "I don't get it, what's so great about sealing jutsu? I mean, isn't that used mostly for sealing weapons into scrolls, right? Not to the Uzumaki, to an Uzumaki, their prowess with sealing jutsu was pretty much unrivaled. They could create complex seals that would baffle the minds of anyone attempting to decipher it. Some seals could create powerful barriers, others could contain powerful attacks. They could seal giant monsters into the smallest of containers, like the Nine Tails for example, he said while staring at his stomach where the seal was located. He added, but that wasn't the only reason, as Naruto furrowed his brow. The Uzumakis were also known for their longevity. Members of the Uzumaki clan had been known to live longer than average lifespans, which was why it was also considered the land of longevity, due to the tremendous life force they possessed. Mito Uzumaki, the first Hokage's wife and first container of the Nine Tails, lived well into your mother's age, he told Naruto in awe. With a hint of hope, he said, whoa. So, what happened to the rest of them, I mean? They couldn't have all died, right? Do you think I might find them someday? Jiraiya shrugged in response. Who knows, after Uzushiogakure was destroyed, the clan spread out amongst the 5 nations, they were effectively scattered to the wind. There's no telling where they are now, or how many are still alive at this point, he said with a sad face. Oh, he remarked, disappointed that he might not be able to locate more of his kin. Is there anything left of them? He tried to recall as much as he could about the Uzumaki clan, saying, well, I know that there's an old clan house located somewhere in the village, and a storage area for some masks they had. Not sure why, though. Other than that I don't know, it's been years since I've thought about it. And I've got a pretty good memory. I see, he remarked after giving that information some thought. Hey, pervy sage, is it possible to go to this old clan house? I want to see if there's anything there that can help me learn more about my mother's clan, Jiraiya thought. I don't know kid, after the clan was wiped out and your mother died the old home was pretty much abandoned. From what I can recall there wasn't much left in there, either the old man had most of it sealed off, or the clan hid their stuff pretty well, he said with a sigh. He looked directly into the old man's eyes and said, almost beseechingly, that doesn't matter, I just want to know more about them. I've always wanted to know more about where I came from, more about my family. If there's even a remote chance I can learn more about them, then I have to know, please pervy sage. Naruto nodded and he said, ah fine, we'll have a look. But don't blame me if we don't find much. Thanks, pervy sage. Will you stop calling me that? You're worse than your mother. Well maybe if you didn't go peeking all the time mum and I wouldn't be right. Never. I am Jiraiya the Gallant. The sage of Mount Myoboku. And the greatest pervert that ever lived. Why would you be proud of that? Later. Homestead of the Uzumaki clan. The once proud homestead of the Uzumaki clan stood there, surrounded by overgrown trees and twisted forest roots. They used to have a house in Uzushiogakure, but their diplomats and Mito Uzumaki's relatives also had a place. Kushina spent her early years here until the passing of the remainder of her clansmen, at which point she and Minato both perished. The homestead was left as a ruin of what it had once been after that. The emblem of proud Uzumaki remains etched above its entrance. Gazing at the dilapidated structure, he exclaimed, whoa. So this was the Uzumaki homestead? It looks kind of rundown. Jiraiya walked around the house and said, hey, after 13 years with no one to look after it, I'd like to see how your home would turn out. But yeah, after your mother's passing this place pretty much became a desolate waste. The old man wanted to keep up the maintenance. But with the state the village was in after the Nine Tails and the resources it would take, the Shinobi Council decided it wasn't worth it seeing as there were no Uzumaki left, he said with a scowl. Angrily, he exclaimed, hey. I'm an Uzumaki. Why couldn't I have inherited it? A tell sign of any Uzumaki was that they were all born with blood-red hair, a common trait among their clan, Jiraiya said, causing Naruto to pause and glance up at the hair strands peeking above his field of vision. You have the Uzumaki name, but none of their looks. He asked, so then, why is my hair blonde, to which Jiraiya shrugged. He commented, who knows, maybe your father's genes were stronger than your mother's, which is impressive if you ask me, to Naruto's raised eyebrows. Jiraiya gave Naruto a hard slap on the forehead and said, what the heck does pants have to do with hair color? Jiraiya sighed and said, genes not genes you idiot. Boy, your education is lacking. He remarked, anyway, not sure what you're going to find here. Anything of value the old man would have likely locked up in the vaults, as Naruto approached and ran his hand over the ancient wood. It's okay, that's fine. Feeling the full weight of what was left behind, he glanced up at the spiral symbol. Jiraiya was staring at the boy when he said, I just wanted to see at least. Alright, I guess. But be cautious, this place has turned into a pretty place. Naruto stepped forward and tumbled through the front steps. Decrepit. Naruto asked Jiraiya as she helped him back up, why'd I keep falling through things? After a while, the two began exploring the ancient homestead. Jiraiya went through the armory in the back, while Naruto poked around some of the older chambers. The majority of it was ancient, decrepit, and crumbling. However, Naruto got the impression that it had once been a thriving community, with people and families strolling around the former homestead. For a moment, he wondered what his life might have been like had the Uzumaki not been scattered. Had he resided here, perhaps? Would he receive the same treatment from the villagers as any other clan? Or would he still have been viewed as the creature that stole everything from them because of the 9 tails inside of him? Naruto thought to himself, different life I suppose. As he peered about, he looked around what appeared to be the clan head's office, thinking to himself, come on, there has to be something here. Judging from the enormous, tattered clan symbol hanging on the wall. Nothing here, he said, peering under the antique desk and behind the bookcase. Nothing here, he said after finally looking under the floorboards for any secret spaces. Aw man, still nothing. He moaned in exasperation. I wonder what's behind here. He exclaimed, pulling down the cloth symbol to discover nothing. He stopped upon noticing a faint looking mark in the center of the wall. TCH, damn, and here I thought it was going to be like in those movies where they hide stuff behind the curtain or something. He fingered the mark, wondering what was going on as the paint slowly flaked off. He took out a kunai and kept scraping the paint until he noticed more spiral shaped, seemingly black markings extending outward from the center. As the sage entered the room, he yelled, what the? Hey! Pervy sage! Get in here! He paused his tirade to consider how many times he had told Naruto not to call him, then glanced at the wall that Naruto had discovered. Naruto said, taking a step back from the wall, check this out. He questioned, what is it? As Jiraiya leaned in to examine the wall. The spiral seal was surrounded by large circular markings on the wall, and the black markings were smaller kanji that extended from the center. They were undoubtedly a formula for keeping the seal in place. They extended from the wall's center to its corners and surrounding edges. I guess that it has to be some sort of storage seal, he bet as Naruto raised an eyebrow. It looks like a seal of some sort. Pretty advanced, no doubt it's an Uzumaki design. He asks, what makes you say that? As Jiraiya gestures. Because the wall is too thin to be anything else, and storage seals can store items within a small pocket dimension. You can even seal a living person inside if you wanted, he said with a brow raised. Jiraiya held up a finger and Naruto said, but I thought storage seals were only used on scrolls, why did they put one on a wall? Ah, but my young and foolish apprentice. Storage seals aren't necessarily bound to scrolls. It's not the item that the seal is placed on that matters, but the seal itself. You can place a seal on a piece of paper and it would still have the desired effect. Scrolls are just more convenient. And you can place more sealing formulas on a scroll than on one piece of paper. Do you understand? He asked because Naruto appeared to be attempting difficult to comprehend. Well, I kind of skipped those classes again, he said, causing Jiraiya to sigh. He said, okay, another lesson you need to have your clones study, to Naruto's moan. But anyway, it looks pretty complex. Using a series of Heaven's Gate seals, I think I can unseal it, using its counterpart, the Earth's Reach seals. It's not too complex to guess the hand signs to unlock it. Naruto asked, you figured out the hand signs that easily? Jiraiya nodded. He asked the boy, who blinked in confusion but nodded as he bit his thumb and let a tiny dab of blood leak out. Well, it's easier if you have a good knowledge of sealing jutsu, and you're a seal master like myself, the man said. As Jiraiya flashed through a few seals and Naruto nodded, he said, okay, once I finish the hand signs, I want you to place your thumb on the center of the seal and pour your chakra into it, okay? The seal turned to Naruto and glowed red, saying, sealing art, heaven and earth release. He yelled, Naruto. Now. As Naruto slammed his hand into the seal. The spiral seal then closed in on itself, revealing a large and a smaller scroll as the markings started to recede toward the center and the seal flashed white. Naruto picked up the scrolls and studied the big scroll that resembled the one he had taken from the Hokage's vault. However, this one had the Uzumaki clan seal on the front and was red. Marked. Additionally, the smaller scroll's lining was green. He exclaimed, "Hey, this looks like the scroll I stole," as Jiraiya removed it from Naruto's grasp. "It's not the same one, but it's close," he remarked, unfolding it and looking at it in mild amazement. He raised a brow at Naruto and said, "This is. It can't be. It was thought to be lost. But it's been here this whole time. Those crafty Uzumakis." Naruto turned back to face him and said, "Huh? What are you going on about, pervy sage?" He shook his head and said, "Naruto, do you have any idea what this is?" "This is the supposed lost scroll of sealing, created by the Uzumaki clan. It's said to contain nearly every type of sealing jutsu they had ever created, and even the ones they were still working on but never completed. Iwa and Kumo searched the whole village trying to locate this scroll after Uzushiogakure was destroyed, but they could never find it. Only bits and pieces of low-level sealing jutsu were left behind. But if the clan knew Uzushiogakure was going to be attacked or destroyed, they must have sent it with Kushina in case anything happened." "Clever," he said while examining the scroll pages and felt his head about to explode the complex seal formulas. Jiraiya laughed and Naruto exclaimed, "That's a lot. I can barely understand any of it." "I'm not surprised. A knucklehead like you would be incapable of understanding sealing of this magnitude. Even if you were descended from the Uzumaki clan," he said while Naruto was yelling at him. "But I admit even I'm a bit stumped myself. Most of it is encrypted, but that's standard for sealing masters. Wouldn't want their formulas being copied by other ninjas after all," he said as he unfolded the scroll. He bit his thumb and flashed some jutsu, saying, "I better keep this hidden, don't want anyone else to know this exists." He called out, summoning jutsu. And a black and orange toad with dark markings around his mouth, eyes, and a circular one directly below his mouth materialized. Naruto was staring at the toad when he said, "Oi, Jiraiya, what's the deal?" He said, "Wow. What kind of toad is this one?" As Jiraiya turned to look at the youngster. Naruto blinked and he said, "HMMN, what, ain't you ever seen a scroll toad before?" Jiraiya nodded and he asked, "Scroll toad?" "That's right, this is Jiraiya, a scroll toad from Mount Myoboku. His task is guarding the secrets of any toad summoner. I've used him and your father used him when he sealed the 9 tails inside you," he said as he gazed at the child. As Naruto nodded, he remarked, "Father? I see. So he's Minato's kid, the same one he used to seal the 9 tails in." He held up the Uzumaki sealing scroll and said, "So anyway, what do you want with me, Jiraiya?" "I want you to keep this with you. I can't trust it to anyone else," he said, nodding and reaching out with his entire body. Jiraiya smacked Naruto on the head, and he cried out, "Whoa." He stretched. He said, "Zip it, kid." "Sorry, Jiraiya, kid's kind of an idiot," and the toad nodded in agreement. He said, "It's okay, this has happened before," and unfolded his body to reveal a blank space. Jiraiya nodded and sealed the scroll of sealing into Jiraiya. "Seal it here, and I'll take good care of it," he said. Jiraiya shook his head and he said, "There, you can get it back when you want it, anything else?" He nodded and Jiraiya reverse summoned himself back to Mount Myoboku. "That will be all," he said. "That's done, all right. How about this one?" he inquired, pointing to the smaller scroll. Jiraiya picked it up, unfolded it, and looked through the pages. With a raised eyebrow, Naruto remarked, "Well, it's not a secret earth shattering scroll, but it looks like a history scroll for future Uzumaki." Naruto became intrigued and grabbed the scroll from him as he said, "It's like one of your history scrolls, but this one details the history of the Uzumaki clan, their rise to power, their partnership with Konoha, and the abilities they contained in their bodies." His question, "Whoa. Sage of the Six Paths? Who's that?" unintentionally created a minor ruckus inside the 9 tails cell. Naruto shrugged and he asked, "Seriously, did you pay any attention in the academy?" Jiraiya sighed and he said, "Only on the cool stuff, like the Hokage, ninjutsu and all that." "Okay, there's not much about him, but the legend goes that the first user of chakra was a man known as the Sage of Six Paths. A powerful figure that possessed powerful chakra and a unique dojutsu. The Rinnegan." Jiraiya nodded and he asked, "The Rinnegan?" Like the Sharingan Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei have? Jiraiya started to explain as Naruto listened. Correct, it was said he was the creator of ninjutsu and passed on his teachings of chakra. The story goes that the sage was so powerful he could create practically anything from nothing and was heralded as a savior of mankind. Eventually, it was said that he had two sons, an older son that inherited his powerful eyes and immense chakra, while the younger son inherited his father's physical prowess and immense life force energy. On the eve of his death, the sage chose the younger son as his successor and a bitter rivalry were formed. Jiraiya clarified a great deal of what he knew toads as he examined the scroll in his hands. He said, "It says here though that eventually, the descendants of the brothers became that of the Uchihas, the Senju, and the Uzumaki clans, while Naruto paid close attention." The old man stared at Naruto and then scoffed. "Whoa. So you're saying, I'm descended from this sage of six guys?" Naruto asked. As a blood vessel began to form on his head, Naruto responded, "Yeah right, there's no actual evidence of the sage ever existing in the first place. It's probably just a story created by the two clans to make themselves sound more important. Having said that, I have met someone who had the legend's eyes." As he returned the scroll to Naruto, he thought to himself, Nagato. So there must be some evidence to the contrary. You should probably read this, and learn more about where your clan comes from. You might learn a thing or two from them, he suggested with a nod. With a sly smile on his face, Jiraiya asked, "What about the big scroll, when do I get to read that?" Naruto nodded and he said, "Oh, interested in sealing jutsu now, are you?" He asked, his face soft. "Yeah, I'm an Uzumaki, right? Which means I should know sealing jutsu at some point, right? Besides, learning it might make me feel closer to them, you know?" He gave the young Uzumaki a gentle smile, and Jiraiya just stared at him. Jiraiya scratched the back of his head and said, "Well, it's far too late to learn anything practical in time for the exam. Even with the shadow clone trick, it takes years to become a seal master of my caliber," he explained while Naruto was slumping. "But at least we can start with the basics," he remarked, causing Naruto's eyes to light up with excitement. He asked as Naruto nodded with more resolve, "But it means that you will have a ton more homework to do, on top of what you're learning right now. Sealing jutsu is not something that you can learn in an afternoon, got it?" "Of course. I'm going to become Hokage one day. I won't ever back down." 30 minutes later, Waterfall. Copying sealing jutsu fundamentals, a group of shadow clones read with dead eye looks and steam coming off their heads. Many of the concepts were incomprehensible to them because the formulas appeared to be written in a foreign language. "Oh. This is so hard. I can't even read this." The clones were yelling among themselves, "Who came up with this? I hate it." While the real Naruto was emitting smoke from his head. Jiraiya laughed at him as he yelled, "How the hell did my ancestors understand this nonsense?" Naruto complained and carried on reading as he exclaimed, "Through hard work and dedication. I told y'all it wouldn't be easy." Jiraiya narrowed his eyes and he exclaimed, "Aw so what, soon as I get this down I'll be so strong no one can stop me. Then I'll be the greatest Hokage there ever was." Although it's encouraging to see that learning more about his family has helped him, I'm beginning to worry about his ego. The kids already have big heads, and I've seen a lot of shinobi brag about their abilities only to die young. He thought as he watched the boy continue to read and practice with his clones, plus, he still has that problem of charging in without thinking, and if he's not careful, he'll just get himself or others hurt. I need to break that habit of his and teach him some humility, but the kid is stubborn and wouldn't take the lesson to heart unless it's hammered in. I suppose I must go back to that lesson. Tomorrow. The waterfall. To prepare for yet another training day, Naruto stretched. The previous evening, he went through the history scroll his ancestors had left behind and learned a plethora of fascinating facts about a clan he was unaware he belonged to. He felt more valuable because he was ready to make them and his parents proud of him. Even though he studied the seal formulas late into the night, his mind was still somewhat overwhelmed, but he was committed to learning sealing jutsu eventually. But for now, he needed to concentrate on what he could pick up and refine. He said, "Okay pervy sage, I'm ready for today's training." As he assumed the fundamental stance of taijutsu. However, he observed that Jiraiya was not acting in her typical manner. Pervy sage?" he inquired, turning to face the man. "Naruto," he uttered while giving the boy a stern look. When he said, Today I want you to come at me with everything you have. Naruto blinked and became startled. What? He questioned, perplexed by the man's grave demeanor. Again, seeing that Naruto was more than a little perplexed, he said, I want you to come at me with everything you have, all the skills you've learned, all the weapons you have, everything. The man just gave Naruto a glare. Are you okay, pervy sage? You're kind of acting weird, Naruto said. As soon as Naruto nodded, he asked, you want to beat Neji, correct? He said, then I need to see how much stronger you've become. If you don't, I'm not going to teach you any further, to which Naruto responded with wide eyes. But you said you would. Naruto stared at him before he pulled out his kunai knives. And I did, but right now I need to see how committed you are, so face me head. On with everything you have. Don't hold back, he said. All right, just don't hold it against me when I win, pervy sage, he brashly said while crossing his fingers. He yelled, Shadow Clone Jutsu. As multiple Naruto copies materialized. He exclaimed, let's go. As the clones all hurried in. With their kunai in hand, they leapt towards the man and tried to stab and swipe him. As soon as Jiraiya dodged their attacks and used simple palm thrusts to the chest to dispel them, the real Naruto attempted to leap at him from behind, but Jiraiya grabbed him by the shirt and threw him into his clones, demonstrating his superior skill set. Naruto growled, losing patience, damn it. As they charged at the man, he and his clones produced their kunai and swung their blades at the Sannin, who simply sidestepped them and vanquished them with ease. Naruto screamed, damn it. Before taking a blow to the face and falling back into a tree trunk. Looking up, Naruto glared as his rage grew and he gave up all the training he had acquired out of sheer willpower. When Naruto and his clones unleashed shurikens on the Toad Sage, he exclaimed, okay. Take this. A puff of smoke emerged, and all that was left was a log riddled with shuriken. Before Jiraiya's foot kicked him in the side of the head, causing him to bounce along the ground and land on the water's surface, Naruto swore, damn it. Substitution. He would have fallen into the water if he hadn't used the shadow clone trick to boost his chakra control. Jiraiya said, is that all you've got? If that's the extent of your abilities, then you will never become Hokage, let alone beat Neji, just as Naruto became angrier and began to hurl his kunai at the man. Jiraiya simply sidestepped and then flashed through a few hand signals. Naruto threw a fist at Jiraiya, saying, oh no, you don't. I'm not letting you use a jutsu. But it went through a bunch of leaves. He cried out, huh? What the heck? As he saw the leaves whirling all around him. Then he heard a rustle in the bushes behind him, and exclaimed, what the heck is this? AHA. Got you. He exclaimed, hurling a kunai towards the shrub. He halted and heard, ah. He hurried over to the sound, expecting to discover a log with a kunai inside, thinking, huh? That didn't sound like pervy sage. But rather than a log, it was something that gave him a horrified look. Sakura was lying on the ground, clutching her shoulder. Blood slowly trickled from the wound as her hand clenched around the kunai knife embedded in her shoulder. She looked up at him, a look of pain and terror on her face. Sakura? He questioned, his voice quivering as she fixed an agonized gaze on him. Naruto, W. Why would you? She questioned in agony as Naruto remained stunned for a moment. She recoiled in terror as he stepped towards her, saying, Sakura. I didn't mean. Sakura. Oh, God, I didn't mean to. Sakura, I didn't. Wait, please. He cried, his heart thumping in his chest. Sakura retreated from Naruto, and tears started to well up in her eyes. Naruto felt tears well up in his eyes and his vision blur, so he yelled, Stay away from me. Sakura. I. He exclaimed as he turned to face Jiraiya, who was standing behind him. With his hands folded and a blank expression on his face. He put his hands to his head and said, Pervy sage. Why? You got to help. Sakura. Sakura's been. Jiraiya stared and pointed, but he screamed, I didn't mean to hurt her. I couldn't. Why aren't you helping me? Naruto, look at this, he uttered as Naruto reluctantly turned to face Sakura again and discovered in the wood a log holding his kunai knife. W. What? B. But where's Sakura? he exclaimed, scanning his surroundings. Naruto looked at the log and then became very angry. She was never here. I used a genjutsu to simulate one of your worst fears. This was all part of your lesson, he said. To the extent that his eyes started to seep red chakra. He gripped the man's vest and glared with long, pointed canines and red, slit like eyes, saying, "W. Why would you do that?" He cried out, "Why would you show me something like that? What the hell is wrong with you?" Just before a paper seal was slapped onto his forehead and more 9 tails chakra started to seep into Naruto's system. As the red chakra started to fade, Naruto collapsed to his knees, exhausted. He said, "W. What did you do?" Before passing out and falling to the ground. He picked up the boy and laid him beneath the tree, remarking, "That was close." So, the 9 tails power is drawn out by anger. Interesting. Naruto awoke with a start and was doused with a bucket of water. Naruto cried out, "Ah!" As soon as he felt the water's icy chill. He turned to face Jiraiya, who was writing in a small notebook while perched on a rock. "Have you cooled down yet, kid?" he asked. "W. What happened?" He snapped his head at Jiraiya as his memory suddenly returned. He screamed angrily, You bastard! Why the hell did you make me see that? I needed to teach you a lesson, and knowing your stubbornness, I felt it was the only way it would get through to you," he said while glaring at Naruto. "What lesson? To realize what a sick fuck you are. Why the hell did you make me think I hurt Sakura?" Jiraiya said, "Because you needed to see what would happen if you keep rushing in," as Naruto came to a stop. Naruto just stood there, numb, and looked down at his hand as it shook slightly. "Think about it, I asked you to come at me with everything you had. You did, without a thought or care, you attacked me with everything you had. And in doing so, you failed to notice the genjutsu I placed you under. At that moment, you hurt your comrade," the man said. With a terrified voice, he questioned, "B. But it was just a genjutsu, right? S. Sakura wasn't hurt, was she?" He spoke very seriously as Naruto felt a stab to the heart. "No, luckily she wasn't. But if she had been, and you pulled a move like that, then she could have been seriously hurt or worse. The problem you have is that you keep rushing in without thinking about how your actions will affect others. If you had taken the moment, you would have realized you were caught in a genjutsu, and that is my weakest ability. The fact you didn't even notice speaks volumes of thick-headedness. I know that sometimes it can't be helped, but a majority of the time, a ninja must be able to think rationally before they act. If they don't just endanger the mission or themselves, they endanger the ones they care about. Would you want to live with the guilt of being responsible for the death of a friend?" He asked as Naruto gasped slightly and remembered back to the land of Wave when Sasuke put himself in harm's way to protect him. Though he hadn't really thought about it at the time, Sasuke wouldn't have been hurt in the first place if he had taken the time to prepare and attack Haku from outside the dome. They had the option to attack from the outside as well as inside the dome, but he charged in like a fool. He realized this after remembering holding Sasuke's chilly body in his arms and being tricked into believing he had hurt Sakura by the genjutsu early on. He was a fool. To get the villagers to notice him, he boasted that he would become Hokage. But if he wound up hurting the people he loved along the way, what good was it? Although Sasuke was conceited and believed he was superior to Naruto, and Sakura always agreed with him, Sasuke had feelings for both of them. He did not want them to suffer harm, particularly at his hands. He said, "Kami. I'm such an idiot," as Jiraiya approached him and put his hand on his shoulder. He said, "No you're not, you're just impulsive," as Naruto turned to face the man with the gentle smile. "The fact you're admitting to your fault is already a big step in the right direction. Now you just need to focus on taking steps to temper yourself. Learn to calm yourself and think before you act, and I know you will become a splendid shinobi, just like your father. Maybe even greater," he grinned as Naruto looked up at the man and then nodded. Jiraiya laughed and he said, "Right, thank you, Jiraiya-sensei." At last, some decency, he uttered, and Naruto glanced up, grinning slightly. Jiraiya laughed and he said, "Don't get too used to it, you're still a pervert." He said, "Ah ha 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 ha. Of course, I am. Let's get back to practice. Genjutsu will be another task we need to assign your clones. But for now, it's summoning time." Naruto nodded, then defeated the clones who were practicing chakra control. Then he slammed his hand on the ground, bit his thumb, and broke through the hand signals. Summoning jutsu, he exclaimed, and a little orange toad with purple markings around his mouth, eyes, and stomach emerged, dressed in a tiny blue jacket. The small toad said, "Yo. Name's Gamakichi. What's happening?" As Naruto looked at it for a moment before grinning, he exclaimed, "Yes. I did it. I finally summoned a toad," and danced a little around the training field. The boy was staring at Jiraiya and Gamakichi when the little one turned to face the sage again and gave Naruto a thumbs up. Jiraiya laughed and he asked, "Is he right in the head?" That remains to be seen. Naruto had been training for nearly 2 weeks, and the finals were just 2.5 weeks away. Naruto made rapid and steady progress during that period. By having several shadow clones practice fundamental chakra control techniques, he had started to hone his chakra control skills thanks to the shadow clones. Now that he could use the standard clone jutsu without having it come out as a deflated version of himself, his control was far better. Although Naruto's taijutsu form remained basic, he no longer appeared to be a thug who constantly swung his fists. Jiraiya had given Naruto the fundamentals of several taijutsu styles he had studied as a child, which would provide a strong basis. Before traveling to Mount Myoboku, he had worked with Sarutobi Sensei to develop this particular style of taijutsu. In any case, the sage anticipated taking a considerable amount of time to acquire the frog kata. Then there was his mindset. Following the challenging genjutsu lesson, Naruto had made a thorough assessment of himself. He had come to the realization that his constant hurrying was possibly endangering both himself and other people, particularly those whom he regarded as his allies and friends. He wanted to make sure that nothing like that would ever happen because it had scared him to think that what he did could affect those around him. Jiraiya started teaching the boy some meditation techniques so that he could mentally get better. A brief activity meant to curb his impetuous actions. In order to gain more strategic understanding, he also kept reading the tactics and strategy guides. This was not to say that all of his mannerisms vanished. Some of his impulses persisted. For example, he frequently refers to people by their nicknames, like Pervy Sage, Busy Brows, and so on. Still, he was beginning to rely more on his judgment than his instincts. Jiraiya had also dedicated time to instructing Naruto in the art of dispelling genjutsu. Even though it was still far from his strongest ninjutsu, he could now dispel genjutsu that was at least low level, possibly mid level with another week of clone training. Hopefully, though, his opponents did not employ genjutsu. In terms of his summoning, he could now call forth a legitimate toad. That is, a tiny orange toad named Gamakichi and a smaller yellow toad named Gamatatsu, who is his younger brother. However, it was preferable to the tadpoles he had been calling in a week before. The hardest part of his training, though, was with the 9 tails. Jiraiya discovered after the genjutsu incident that the 9 tails' power was activated by strong emotions, particularly anger. However, knowing that Naruto would be in a state where his emotions would overwhelm him, he made the decision to find an alternative way to activate the 9 tails' power. A number of Naruto clones persisted in balancing on logs, concentrating on keeping the log upright in the water while focusing on chakra control. While some continued reading sealing jutsu fundamentals, others studied tactics and history. Though he had underestimated how difficult sealing jutsu would be, he was adamant that he would eventually master the art of his ancestors. The true Naruto was practicing his taijutsu once more and fending off his clones while giving orders to all of them to devise plots and group strategies to catch him off guard. His fighting skills against Jiraiya and himself had improved his taijutsu. However, it would take a long time to become proficient in a particular taijutsu form or have any chance of defeating Neji in a straight-up taijutsu match. They were practicing ways to outmaneuver Neji because of this. Standing in the middle of the field, Naruto signaled to his clones while donning only his orange pants, black shirt, and sandals. They gave each other a nod as they got ready to strike. Naruto evaded or deflected the kunai that 2 clones threw at the original. 2 more came very close, and he parried their blades with his, sending sparks flying everywhere they touched. Leaping backward, he unleashed 2 shuriken from his pouch, hurling them towards the clones. Just as 2 of the clones wrapped kunai around his wrists with ninja wire, the clones burst into flames. 2 more clones raced in, slid in, and kicked his feet up while the other clones held him in place. 3 others tried to stomp on Naruto's stomach and he collapsed onto the ground. However, as he temporarily boosted his strength and wrenched the clones holding him down, Naruto focused chakra into his arms, releasing himself from their hold and rolling out of the path of the 3 kicks. Naruto smirked and let out a few exhausted breaths. Alright, that wasn't bad. But we need to increase the number of clones holding down the wire, otherwise, Neji could just break free like I just did, he said with a nod. What if we throw in paper bombs? That might work? Yeah, but it's still only an exam, we don't want to kill the guy. Well, we need to make him pay for Hinata. He had no right to put her down like that. But we can't let our emotions get the best of us again, otherwise we'd end up getting hurt. The clones talked to the original, or worse, end up hurting someone we care about, and they all shuddered at the thought. His hand started to shake at the memory. I still hate that pervy sage made us see that. But still, I guess we needed to see it, knock some sense into our thick heads, huh? He thought to himself. He heard Jiraiya say, couldn't agree more, kid, and turned to face her. Naruto said, ah, there you are, pervy sage, feeling the knowledge return to him after he had destroyed the clones. He inquired, what kept you? While Jiraiya sighed. Stop calling me that, anyway I was running a little late because I had to pick up some things, he replied with a grin. With a smile on his face, he said, it's time for the next phase of your training, chakra transformation. He exclaimed, okay, we're getting to the good stuff. With excitement. He questioned, so how does this work? As Jiraiya took out bits of paper. The wise man nodded and he said, paper? He held the paper and channeled chakra into it, saying, yep, but not just any ordinary paper. This is chakra paper, special paper made from trees that feed on chakra. They will react to one of the 5 chakra natures. For example, the paper burned instantly and turned to ash. He said, whoa. While Jiraiya grinned. His explanation to Naruto, who had learned the lessons from the clones, went something like this. When chakra is applied, the paper will react to your chakra's nature. What you just saw was my main chakra nature, which is fire. It goes like this, lightning chakra crumbles the paper, wind splits it in half, water makes it wet, and earth turns it into dirt. Naruto nodded as he said, what we're going to do now is determine your chakra nature, then we can focus on honing it. He questioned, so, does this mean fire style is all you're good at? Jiraiya shook his head in response. He held up another piece of paper and channeled the earth nature chakra as the paper crumbled to dirt. No, you can use other jutsus, but it's preferred to master your initial nature transformation to increase its power. Plus when you get older and train more, you can effectively use more than one chakra nature, he said. I believed I explained this a while back, but one isn't limited to just one chakra nature. A Jonin can use up to 2 or 3 types of chakra natures, which can be acquired with enough training. But it's more preferred to master your initial element. He clarified as Naruto nodded. What about ice? I fought against someone who could use ice a while back in the land of waves, what element does that fall under? He asked with a nod. Well, that is by a combination of 2 elements, wind and water. However, it's near impossible for ordinary shinobi to combine 2 chakra natures into a new one. Those that can use both at the same time possess a Kekkei Genkai, a bloodline limit. The first Hokage himself was famed for his wood-style jutsu, where he could combine earth and water to create wood. Although, no one else aside from him has ever been able to replicate wood style naturally, he explained with a nod. Jiraiya shrugged and he said, whoa. Hey, so how come no one else has been able to use wood style? No one knows. It was believed the first Hokage possessed a powerful life force that only his earth and water style could naturally create wood. Others have tried in the past, but the results have been fruitless and the wood style was classified as a Kekkei Genkai, he said with a nod. He remembered the investigation into his former friend, not to mention all those sick experiments Orochimaru conducted on those children just to try and replicate the first Hokage's power. He said, all right, enough history lessons, time to see what you have, kid, to which Naruto replied with a smile before grabbing the documents. All right, time to see what I can do. Watching the papers in Naruto's hands, he trailed off, hold it, you only need to use one. One paper split evenly in half, signifying his possession of the wind chakra. But the other 2 were different. As they stared at the papers, one got soaking wet and the other crumbled into nothing but dirt. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes and said, huh? Why did three of them react differently? Naruto questioned. Perhaps it could be, he remarked, taking one of the extra papers. As soon as Naruto took the paper and used his chakra, he said, "Try it again, Naruto." Similar to the first, this one split down the middle. As Naruto took a second one and it started to get drenched, he said, "Okay, now hold another." Naruto arched a brow at him as he said, "I see. It's possible but what pervy sage? Well, it's possible that due to your vast amounts of chakra, the paper could only identify your most dominant chakra nature. So when you grabbed the others, they reacted to your other chakra natures. So instead of having just one chakra nature, you have three," he said. Naruto's eyes widened because of feeling of accomplishment. However, as the frightened Sakura peered into his soul, the memory of the genjutsu flashed through his mind, and he suppressed the urge to brag. Jiraiya blinked at the boy's lack of boastfulness. "So this means I have to master 3 different elements now, right?" The boy inquired. He nodded, thinking, I kind of expected him to brag about that. Must have been because of the genjutsu. Though the old wise man wished he didn't have to be so harsh, he was glad that the incident more than took his godson for a ride. But if that occurred while Naruto was on a mission, it would be much worse since he could freeze and end up dead. Better in a safe haven than on a mission where an enemy would show no such leniency. Exactly, it won't be easy, even with the clone trick. But nothing ever is. So the trick now will be to have you learn to mold your chakra into that specific element. After that, we can get started on learning some elemental jutsu, and a few ninjutsu I've found that could be perfect for you, he said with a nod. Okay, so what do I do first? Well, make 300 clones. And then split them into groups of 3 groups of 100 each. One group will focus on wind, while the other 2 will focus on water and earth. For the wind element, he grabbed a fallen leaf from the air. He gave Naruto a leaf and said, "You have to take it and cut it using your chakra. Seeing as wind is your primary, you will be focusing on that element first. Wind chakra is the best at close to mid range attacks, so you must make your chakra sharp." He picked up some dirt and held it in his palm, saying, "As for you other clones, they must take this dirt and use your chakra to turn it into stone. Like this." Jiraiya clenched his hands around the dirt and focused his chakra on it, the dirt particles forming together until he opened his palm and stone replaced the dirt. Naruto exclaimed, "Whoa," as he examined the stone. "So, what about water?" "That leaf is going to be difficult," he said, passing him another leaf. "You need to use your chakra to draw the water out of the leaf until it dries up, like the ones you see in autumn. My advice would be to hold it by the stem, so you don't confuse your sweat with the water. You'll know when you succeed when you can draw out a drop of water the same size as the leaf," he said with a nod. As Jiraiya nodded, he questioned, "And this is all the first stage of training, right? Learning how to change my chakra into that element. What about lightning and fire?" He held a leaf between his 2 fingers and said, "Well, it's like cutting a leaf, but you have to make the center burn, like this." The leaf quickly started to smoke before it burned. "But seeing as you don't have fire nature, we'll come back to it at a later date. As for lightning, you have to generate a spark between 2 pieces of metal. Learning to charge your chakra into a spark of electricity," he said with a nod. Jiraiya nodded as he asked, "So, in a sense, anyone can use all the elements? It just takes time and practice." "Correct. You may not know this, but the old man, the 3rd Hokage, can use all of the chakra natures. But it took him decades to master them all, and you've got a method that accelerates the process. I say given a year or 2, you might be able to master all 5 as well. See, reading all those books has been good for you," he laughed. "Yeah, some of it still flies over my head, but I'm picking up a lot more than I ever did before," said Naruto. All the clones in Naruto nodded as they set to work. "Well, a good education will do that. Now let's get started. Group wind and water, go grab as many leaves off that tree as you can. Group earth will pick up the dirt and turn it into stone, and finally," he said. There was a lot of groaning and grunting as the wind group attempted to make their chakra sharp as they concentrated on cutting the leaf with their chakra while holding their palms together. As the other group attempted to turn the dirt into stone, hard material, by compressing their chakra into it. When it came to extracting the water from the leaves, the water group was finding it most difficult. Jiraiya sat with his notebook open under the tree. He occasionally watched Naruto to make sure he hadn't unintentionally activated the 9 Tail's chakra. Although he intended to teach Naruto how to use the tailed beast's power in the future, he chose to accumulate suppressing seals that Minato had made in the past after realizing that anger could have the opposite effect. I'll give the kid his due. He is determined. By now, everyone else would have given up. He stopped writing and looked up at the sky, proving that he had inherited the better qualities from those two. Minato, Kushina, I had many regrets in my life. I chased after Tsunade for a long time only to be turned down. I didn't stop my friend Orochimaru from following a path that went against the village's norm, and I didn't support your son. It's probably my biggest one yet, he said, closing his eyes to imagine himself speaking to them at that moment. I'm determined to be here for him now, even though I can't take back the time I lost with him. To atone for my transgressions and assist him in becoming the Hokage he so desires. Unaware of the ghostly figures behind him, he thought, I just hope you can forgive me one day. Putting a hand on each shoulder, they looked proudly at their son. Oh, and Kushina? Don't kick my ass if I die and I see you up there. Please. I swear, that perverted jutsu is not what I taught him. He swallowed hard as he saw Kushina's image shift slightly to her angry form and Minato retreat in fear. A tiny cut was made on one of the leaves, and he heard one of Naruto's cheers as he opened his eyes once more. How about that? Konoha Cliff Training Ground, meantime. With only one hand behind his back, Kakashi Hitaki, the current captain of Team 7, a former Anbu captain, and apprentice to the 4th Hokage, tried to climb up the cliff. Knowing his unofficial rival would attempt to scale the cliff with both arms bound behind his back, if Guy was present, was certain. I've gotten out of shape, that's why this climbing exercise is so hard, lamented Kakashi as he ascended the cliff. He thought back to his meeting with the Hokage and the other Jonin, saying to himself, I just hope I can make it in time. 2 weeks ago. Concurrent gathering. The devastating news still hit them hard when the Hokage concluded telling them about it. Hayate Gecko died in battle. Many of them had even served on the same genin team in their youth, and the majority had known Hayate since their time at the academy. Among the rafters, one in particular developed a close and profound bond with the man. Hayate was, the 3rd Hokage nodded, and Kakashi started. Kikyo Castle discovered his body this morning. Sarutobi said, it looks like a strong wind-style jutsu was used to kill him, to Anko's scowl. Was it Orochimaru? She questioned, her old sensei still deeply hurting her. We cannot presume that the blow was delivered by Orochimaru. Hayate was most likely pursuing Kabuto Yakushi, the spy who attempted to seize Sasuke at the hospital. However, even though it wasn't Orochimaru, it's obvious he's planning something, the other Jonin nodded, and Kakashi speculated. Then we must cancel the Chunin exams if Orochimaru is plotting something for the village. To their dismay, Rado made a recommendation up until the Hokage shook his head. No, Orochimaru made himself known to Anko and begged us to keep the exams scheduled. At present, the examinations have drawn shinobi from every one of our shinobi allies, he remarked, drawing Homura Mitokado, one of his advisors, towards him. He asked his old friend, what do you think it means, Saru? Based on what we know about Orochimaru, he has a great dislike for Leaf Village and the strength to completely destroy a village by himself. Rado shook his head, but he continued, since he left the village years ago, any number of countries would want him as an ally rather than an enemy. Not possible. In the alliance, not a single village would betray another. Or even form an alliance with that betrayer. The 3rd Hokage narrowed his eyes at Rado's exclamation. The problem is that our treaty with the other villages only has verbal force behind it. As demonstrated on several occasions in Great Ninja Wars. Rado bowed his head as Kakashi gave an explanation. In any event, there's no need to worry excessively as we only have a few minor details to go on. The Jonin nodded and Sarutobi clarified, it's all just conjecture. Members of Anbu Black Ops have been sent to the other nations in an attempt to obtain as much intelligence as possible. We might be rash in our actions, and it could be exactly what our adversary is waiting for, counseled Kaharu Utatane, the 2nd advisor to the 3rd Hokage, and her allies. Besides, I have total faith in each and every one of you, no matter what. We will gather our strength and strike back if the moment comes when our adversary bares their teeth. Because we are the Hidden Leaf's shinobi. And we're not going to allow our adversary defeat us. All of the Jonin nodded in agreement as Sarutobi spoke, sensing the will of fire blazing within them. Today, Konoha Cliff Instruction. Recalling the third Hokage's words gave Kakashi a boost of energy as he ascended the cliff. His hold began to loosen as he opened his inner gate and directed his chakra toward his brain. Then, as he pulled himself up higher, he flipped over the rock and landed on a higher ledge. But as he rose higher, he became aware of a figure hovering above him. When he looked up, he saw Sasuke Uchiha smirking over him and with his hands in his pockets. "Took you long enough," Kakashi squinted as Sasuke spoke. "Hey, so you finally showed up." Saying that, Kakashi leapt over and undid his own knot. "I was beginning to think you'd be asleep for the entire time, then you'd miss out on some needed training," he said while glaring at Sasuke. He looked at Kakashi and nodded. "I already wasted enough time resting, I need to get stronger," he said. I am aware. I'll catch you up on this. In the finals, you'll be going up against Gaara of the Sand. Gaara possesses a versatile sand jutsu and is a formidable opponent." Sasuke narrowed his eyes and said, he was able to critically injure Rock Lee during his fight, so much so that Rock Lee may never be a ninja again. "I observe." He questioned, "Did you learn anything useful?" Kakashi sighed. He said, "Nice show of concern for your fellow Leaf Ninja." But true, at the beginning of his match, Gaara was unable to match Lee's lightning. Fast speed. Fortunately for you, I was able to use my Sharingan to record Lee's fighting style with Gaara, so I can teach you exactly how to do it. I'm getting off topic, but you won't be able to match his exact speed because Lee had to spend years honing his weightlifting skills to get that fast. However, Gaara's impressive and nearly impenetrable sand defense will pose a problem. Sasuke nodded as Kakashi continued. He nodded at Kakashi and continued, "So, I will need a jutsu that can bypass his defenses." Kakashi held up a hand, "And for that, I will teach you one of my jutsus. This was a technique I created back when I was only 15 years old and is considered an A-rank jutsu that might be just the thing." He performed a series of hand gestures before using his left hand to grab his right wrist and begin gathering chakra in it. Then he transformed the nature and shape of the chakra into strong electrical streams. Sasuke gazed in wonder as electricity erupted all around Kakashi's palm. "This is the Chidori," he said, illuminating Sasuke with his Sharingan as he gazed in wonder at the technique's strength. "And this will help me against Gaara?" Kakashi nodded as he asked. "And then? Will it help me get my revenge?" he asked, glaring at Sasuke while Kakashi nodded and looked worried. "It is going to. However, I must emphasize that the purpose of this technique I created is to safeguard the people you love. Do I convey that you must never use it against your allies?" Sasuke just gave him a glare and thrust his hands into his pockets as he asked. He nodded even though Kakashi was still a little concerned. "Yes, I understand," he replied. "All right, so I'll have to teach you how to alter your chakra nature in order for you to employ this jutsu. You are aware of that, correct?" With a sneer, Sasuke asked Kakashi. Sasuke grinned and said, "Of course I know, I'm not an idiot like Naruto," as the real Naruto sneezed at the waterfall. "All right, so that will simplify things. You'll need these in order to transform your chakra into lightning, which is necessary in order to use the Chidori." Holding up two small metal wires, Kakashi said. "The objective is to transform your chakra into lightning by making a jump between wires. Once you accomplish that, the Chidori will be simpler to comprehend," he directed, and Sasuke nodded before turning to start working. "In addition, won't you inquire about Naruto?" Sasuke said nothing, but Kakashi continued, "He made it into the finals as well. It is irrelevant. What matters to me is not whether he wins or loses. My only concern is becoming stronger." He just spoke while concentrating on transforming his chakra into lightning. Yar. Same old Sasuke. Then, thinking about his other student, he peered off into the distance. How is Ebisu instructing Naruto, I wonder? I assume that he has somewhat improved his chakra control by now. After 2 days. Holding the leaf in his palms, Naruto moaned and moaned as he concentrated on transforming his chakra into a cutting wind. He was sweating profusely as he concentrated on mastering the technique. "Go on, now. Come on, please." When Naruto opened his palm and saw that the leaf had a cut about 25% of the way down, he said. He kept his concentration and said, "Damn. Still not enough." Hee. One of his clones shouted, "Check it out," while holding up a leaf that was marginally deeper cut than his own. Oh no. I'm not even close to that. The clone smirked as Naruto let out a moan. Well, I'm just more talented than you. We're all the same, idiot. They all heard a different clone smirking and holding up his leaf with a deeper cut, saying, check this out. Chick. Shout that I'm not doing as well as that version of myself is. Hi there. Earthlings. How are things going for you? As his Earth group persisted in attempting to turn dirt into stone, Naruto yelled at them. What are your thoughts? This isn't as simple as it seems. Retorted one of the clones. You guys are really fortunate. Are you aware of how difficult it is to remove water from a leaf? A water group clone let out a shout. I haven't managed to get even a drop. I got like a pin-prick size. The water group clones glared at him as another person yelled. Another water clone yelled, well, who asked you? In the meantime, Naruto stared in shock at the quarreling clones. He approached Jiraiya and said, I think I've used the shadow clones for too long now. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, indeed. Jiraiya nodded and said, it's best you have them dispel now and gather up those experience points. Very good concept. Hi everyone. We're going to pause now. Spread out in the order listed below. Alright, so the wind group goes first, earth group follows in a minute, and water comes last. The clones nodded as he yelled at them. As the wind group dispersed, they all exclaimed, okay. Naruto felt a wave of knowledge rush through him. The earth group and the water group came next, both quite soon after. The headache was starting to get the better of him. Oh, dude. I detest it when it acts like that, he said, massaging his head. He said, I feel like my head is going to burst, so much info, to which Jiraiya laughed and gave him a container of water and an aspirin. As with all martial arts, prolonged use can have unintended consequences. Jiraiya remarked, for you, it's packing your mind with extra information, to which Naruto nodded. Yes, but it feels to me like a ton of books are slammed into my head all at once. Even now superior to Sakura's blows. Jiraiya arched a brow and then laughed at his comment. What? As Jiraiya shook his head, Naruto inquired. There is nothing, nothing at all. Simply put, you remind me a little bit of who I used to be. Naruto stared at Jiraiya for a moment before a shocked expression appeared on his face. Oh no. Does that imply that I'll change into you eventually? Nah. I'm being overly emotional. How well you can ruin a mood, boy. Jiraiya sighed and yelled. He remarked, anyway, how's the training? It looks like you're making progress with wind chakra, to Naruto's groan. Yes, but it's still not that easy. Even though I've improved my chakra control, it's still challenging to transform my chakra into wind and cut the leaf. Not to mention that the water ones and the other Mi's are having trouble turning dirt into stone. Let's not even start. With a raised eyebrow, Naruto said, well, you're just lucky we're focusing on the first level of change in chakra nature, Jiraiya added. The initial stage. He said, so, what's the second level? To which Jiraiya grinned. Then he pointed to the waterfall and said, well for wind. He said, it entails you using your chakra to cut a waterfall, as Naruto gaped in amazement. What? That seems unfeasible. You have a sealed 9-tailed spirit fox inside of you, and you have witnessed people call forth giant snakes and fireballs from their mouths. And you believe that's not feasible? Naruto closed his mouth and asked. Well pointed out, he remarked while glancing at the waterfall. He questioned, so then what about earth and water? While Jiraiya grinned. Well, earth requires you to do the same thing with dirt practice, except you have to make a large boulder out of smaller rocks, he said while gulping. Jiraiya continued, and as for water, you need to use your chakra to make an orb of water the same size as your head, to which Naruto nodded in agreement. All right. Thus, it's building on the knowledge I gained from the first phase. I am to employ higher caliber jutsu, is that correct? Jiraiya nodded and Naruto asked. Alright, you got it. At last, all those book readings have paid off. With a slap on the boy's shoulder, Jiraiya spoke. Not really, I'm still struggling with the leaf cutting. Do you know anyone who could offer advice, or do you have any yourself? Jiraiya wondered as Naruto inquired. Although I can assist with earth and water, the wind is not my strongest element. However, I believe I know someone who is very knowledgeable about the wind chakra. He's the sensei of one of your friends and the son of the old man. Naruto blinked and he said, Asuma Sarutobi. You mean Shikamaru's team, Asuma-sensei? Is he really the third Hokage's son? He shouted, and Jiraiya gave a nod. Then that would make Asuma Konohamaru's father. Near, but not quite. He said, Asuma is his uncle. If I remember correctly, Sarutobi has another son who works in the Anbu. Naruto nodded. I see, he said, glancing from the heads of the third and fourth Hokage to the Hokage monument in the distance. Hey. I recently realized. Asuma, Konohamaru, and I, we're kind of similar. Jiraiya nodded as he continued, we have a lot of expectations to live up to now that we're related to the Hokage. The only thing that separates you from Konohamaru or Asuma, for that matter, is that no one is aware that you are the son of the fourth. However, I believe it has strengthened you and given you the same outlook that both of your parents had. Naruto grinned and looked up at the elderly man. They worked hard to get where they were and learned to value those around them, that's what made them splendid shinobi. And what will make you one of the greatest? He said. That was really touching, but then his eyes grew glaringly narrowed. If it weren't for the fact that you're peeping right now. He yelled, gesturing to the man's shadow clone that was slyly glancing at the girls downstream in the river. What can I say, hey? Being a skilled writer, I require an abundance of content for my upcoming project. OMG. Why'd I always seem to get a pervert teacher? Naruto screamed aloud at the sky. Team 10 training ground in the interim. With a growl of frustration, Shikamaru let out as Choji charged at him using his human boulder jutsu. The Nara clan heir leapt out of the way as soon as he realized he didn't have enough chakra to hold his friend in place using his shadow binding jutsu. Right before Choji drove into a tree. What is wrong, Shikamaru? Already ran out of gas? Shikamaru moaned and Asuma inquired. Asuma laughed and he said, ah. What a drag. Asuma said, okay, Choji, let's do it again, and Choji nodded. That's correct, Choji replied, getting ready to apply his expansion jutsu. Hey. Asuma-sensei. They exclaimed as they turned to face Naruto, who was sprinting in their direction. He exclaimed, Asuma-sensei. Huh, Naruto? Shikamaru sighed with relief as Choji spoke. He got up and remarked, never thought I'd be so glad to see that idiot. Naruto, what's up? You ought to be getting ready for the finals, right? Naruto smiled and Shikamaru inquired. Obviously, I am. I've been working out really hard. Asuma raised a brow and Naruto said, I just need to ask Asuma-sensei something. Huh? Naruto nodded and he said, what do you need me for? You do realize I'm Shikamaru's teacher, right? And I shouldn't be giving his potential opponent any advantage. Yes, but I could use some guidance. Asuma was staring at the boy when Naruto said, and I heard you're the best one to go to. Asuma arched an eyebrow. See, I found out I have wind chakra, and I heard you're probably the best one to ask about it, he said. You're studying the transformation of nature? As Naruto nodded, Shikamaru remarked, you know, you need some real talent to master that. Yes, that's why I need Asuma-sensei's advice. I'll be able to perform some amazing wind ninjutsu soon. Asuma stroked his beard and he spoke. I didn't believe you were prepared for that level of instruction. Boy Kakashi must be putting Sasuke and you through a grinder, don't you think? Naruto gave Asuma a subtle glare. Not really. He's been too preoccupied with Sasuke's training right now. Asuma arched a brow at him, so, I've been getting help from another teacher, he said. Huh. Why is Naruto suddenly learning about the nature chakra? I suppose it has something to do with Orochimaru and the curse mark. As far as I can remember, he was the dead last at the academy, and in the preliminary round, his chakra control was appalling. Has anything changed in a fortnight? Asuma pondered in his mind. Alright, Swa's not like he'll get past Neji, so I suppose I can give him some advice if he wants it. Asuma nodded, thinking to himself. Okay, let me give you some advice, he said, and Naruto grinned with anticipation. He turned to Choji, who had long been aware of the Akamichi's voracious appetite, and Naruto blanched at this. Only if you agree to pay for Shikamaru's victory dinner after the Chunin exams, he said. He'd be broke in a snap. All right. What say you? Shikamaru prevails, and I foot the bill. You pay for mine. I win. All right? Asuma furrowed her brow and caressed her beard as he asked. All right, he said, shaking the boy's hand. With his hands in his pockets, Shikamaru remarked, not like you to make a risky wager, sensei, to which Asuma shrugged. Well, just for now. All right, so I suppose a straightforward method to demonstrate to you would be to provide you with an example, Asuma remarked, taking 2 knives out of his pouch. These were no typical knives, they were held with the blades pointing down from the fist, and they featured 4 finger holes and spiked knuckle guards. As his chakra poured into the blade, he said, these are my chakra blades. They're made from a special metal that draws out the nature chakra from the user. It covered the blade in a jagged, nearly razor-like layer of blue haze. Naruto exclaimed, gazing at the blade, whoa. Asuma gave the order, here, try to do the same, while Naruto took a blade and focused his chakra into it. Asuma noticed Naruto wasn't struggling as much as he had assumed, and he thought, huh. His control seems to have improved a bit. But unlike Asuma's, the chakra surrounding Naruto's blade appeared shaky. It doesn't look anything like yours, Asuma-sensei? Asuma nodded and Naruto spoke. Since you've only recently begun, this is not shocking. Pay attention now. You must visualize dividing your chakra in half and rubbing the 2 together in order to manipulate your wind chakra. Naruto nodded as Asuma continued, then you have to compress those parts together and sharpen them into fine pieces. Like sharpening a kunai? As Shikamaru and Asuma blinked, Naruto spoke. He understands that? Just before Asuma nodded, they both thought at the same time. All right. Naruto nodded and then glanced at the chakra blade, but Asuma continued, anyway, the thinner and sharper they are, the better. Hey, could you tell me how effective this wind chakra is? Since we already have kunai knives, what use is there? Asuma grinned and he asked. Let me demonstrate for you. Look at that tree over there. Naruto nodded and raised his weapon. Take my knife and throw it, and I'll do the same, Asuma gave the order. At the same moment, he and Asuma both threw knives. However, Asuma sliced straight through the tree and struck the stone behind it when Naruto's blade came to a stop at the tree. Whoa! With stars in his eyes, he exclaimed, it not only cut through the tree, it went straight through it and hit the boulder. Asuma grinned. Asuma responded, actually, if I wanted to, I could make it go right through the rock as well, but that's dangerous, so I limited my chakra, causing Naruto to wince. He said, W. Whoa, as Asuma lifted a finger. You see, that's the main distinction. The shinobi with the sharper tool would prevail in a fight between 2 of the same level. For fighters in the mid 2. Close range, wind chakra offers the best abilities. This wind chakra is a pretty cool ability, huh? As Naruto nodded, he asked. And hey, after the exams, if you ever need any more tips, feel free to drop by, just be ready to pay for our meals, he said with a grin. No issue. All I need to do now is work out earth and water. Asuma raised a brow and said, thanks, Asuma-sensei. Earth and water? However, Naruto crossed his fingers and dispelled himself before he could receive a response. What? Was it a shadow clone, then? Shikamaru said, eyebrow raised. You made him pay for our dinner, which was pretty mean of you. Asuma was mentally processing what Naruto meant by earth and water when he said, never took you for the gambler type, but she shrugged it off. Well, it'll work out. Asuma shrugged and said, he might have made some progress, but I doubt you'll be able to defeat Guy's student. I'm not sure. The one guy the first can never really figure out is Naruto. Asuma raised an eyebrow at Shikamaru's statement, not to mention he seemed different than 2 weeks ago, he may have a chance against Neji. You think so, guess we'll just have to wait and see, Asuma remarked while lighting a cigarette. I guess so. In any case, Asuma tensed at the thought, Naruto has the same appetite for ramen as Choji does. Asuma sighed and he said, better hope Naruto doesn't win, otherwise you're out of Ryo. God damn it. And my luck is really bad. Returning to the waterfall. As the rest of Naruto's clones processed Asuma's lesson, they were inundated with information. I see. That's how it operates, then. Naruto smiled and returned his attention to his training. Jiraiya grinned as she observed Naruto's resolve. He watched the student in front of him and thought back to all of his previous students who were standing next to him. Kid's got a knack for pushing on, I can say that much, he said to himself. Yahiko, Konan, Minato, Nagato, he said, so many of my students. So many of them passed before me, staring at Naruto. I wonder if this is the child of prophecy that I've been looking for, someone who will bring about a massive revolution in this world, or will I have failed once more, he asked himself. He heard Naruto say, Yada, and wave a fully cut leaf. As they flung their leaves into the air, he and the other clones exclaimed, I did it. Maybe not. Gazing at Naruto as he triumphed over the leaf, Jiraiya grinned, I feel good about this kid. All I have to do now is bring the earth and water down. Hi there. How are things going? What are your thoughts? Now shut up and assist us. Hi. Don't speak to me in that manner. You're not the boss of me. Yeah, I am. You are mine. Jiraiya shook his head and sighed. Well, it will be interesting, to put it mildly, he remarked as he stood up and walked toward his newest apprentice. Numerous titles were written down and scribbled in the notebook beside the rock. And one of them was just this. Naruto Uzumaki's Tale.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.